The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Carlotta B. Cochran, St. Thomas Episcopal Church, Chesapeake. Reverend Cochran, welcome.
Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the peoples of this great commonwealth, brought here out of many kindred and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, especially Donald, our President, Terry, our Governor, and this assembled body, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to your righteous law we may show forth your praise to all peoples. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, do not let our trust in your great goodness fail. All these things we ask through our gracious and loving God, who binds us together as one. Amen.
Amen. Call the roll. All those present, please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Friday, February 17, 2017.
The senior senator from Chesapeake moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the House of Delegates. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Good morning, Mr. President. I would respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications received from the House of Delegates, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communications from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 3.
Ayes 36, noes 3. The reading of the communications is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness, Mr. President. If we could start the introductions in the gallery, but we may need to pause before we complete them, pending the arrival of an extraordinarily important person in the process this morning.
Thank you, Senator.
She's not here yet.
Thank you. The time has come to recognize visitors to our gallery and take up other matters for the morning hour. The senior senator from Richmond, Senator Sturdivant.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, joining us in the gallery today are very good friends of mine. They are constituents of Senator Dunavant, but one is a co-worker of mine. The other is her daughter. Joining us, Mr. President, are Corrine and Hannah Silverman. Corrine Silverman is a phenomenal attorney here in the Richmond area, and her daughter, Hannah, is a student at the Steward School in Henrico, and they are spending President's Day here with us at the Capitol, and I hope we would offer them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Corrine and Hannah Silverman please rise? Corinne and Hannah, thank you all so much for visiting us this morning. And as you might imagine, there's just a tremendous amount of history here in Mr. Jefferson's capital, so we hope you have a wonderful visit with us this morning. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Corinne and Hannah Silverman the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, there are over 80,000 Girl Scouts in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and a number of them are visiting us today to celebrate a very important milestone. It is the 100th year that Girl Scouts have been selling cookies. It all started in 1917 when one troop in Muskogee, Oklahoma, decided to fund their own troop activities and started a bake sale selling cookies. Since then, millions of Girl Scouts participate and learn important skills from the cookie program. They learn entrepreneurial skills such as goal setting, decision making, money management, people skills, and business ethics. That Girl Scout cookie program has evolved into the largest entrepreneurial training program for girls in the world. And of course, the proceeds, just like way back 100 years ago, help to support the activities of the Girl Scouts. I hope you'll give them a big congratulations on 100 years of cookies.
That's great. Thank you, Senator. Would the Girl Scouts of America please rise? Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning, and thanks for all the great things that you do for the community as Girl Scouts and as leaders and future leaders of our Commonwealth and our great country. And congratulations on 100 years. And, you know, I've been around for over half of those 100 years, and I just want to, if you have an extra box of cookies, the Thin Mints is what I would like. So we appreciate you being here, and we hope you have there we go. So we hope you have a wonderful visit today in Mr. Jefferson's capital. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members of the Girl Scouts of America the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, are you going to share your cookies?
Absolutely.
Okay. With that, Mr. President, I would ask that the Senate now stand in recess for 5 minutes.
The Senate will stand in recess for 5 minutes. The Senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I would ask that the Courts of Justice Committee have convene here at my desk for a brief meeting.
Thank you, Senator. The Senate will stand in recess. The Senate will come to order. The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we were graced by the presence of Reverend Carlotta B. Cochran from St. Thomas Episcopal Church, who offered her beautiful prayer of peace and unity. As you can imagine, she is a valuable staple to the faith community in the city of Chesapeake. She is also a graduate of Virginia Wesleyan College in Hampton Roads, and with her today in the gallery is her husband Thomas and her daughter Milana. If you would offer her the warm welcome to the Senate, I would appreciate it.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Had she left? Thank you, Senator. I think she's left, but I agree with you. She gave us a wonderful message and got us off to a good start, and I suspect she might have had to get back to Chesapeake for other pressing business. But I would ask the Senate to please join me in offering the welcome to the Reverend Carlotta B. Cochran. The senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for 2 introductions.
The senator has the floor.
In the gallery today are 3 individuals that have worked in my office as interns throughout the 2017 General Assembly session. I have truly been blessed, Mr. President, to have them on the dance team. Returning from last year was Miss Paige Horn. And Paige is a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University, where she is majoring in political science and minoring in general business. She is very interested in researching election reform and plans to attend graduate school in the near future. Miss Malika Zahn is a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University as well and is majoring in political science with a concentration in international relations and a minor in public management. And holding up the fort with those 2 lovely ladies is Mr. Nick Powell. And he is a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University, where he is a double major in public policy and English. He is looking forward to a career in marketing and copywriting. And Mr. President, they have done an awesome job, and I wanted them to have a day to come over to the gallery and see where all of their hard work ends. Hopefully begins. So, Mr. President, would you please give them the warm welcome of the Senate?
Thank you, Senator. Would Paige Horn, Nick Powell, and Malika Zahn please rise? Thank you all so much for visiting us this morning in the gallery, and thanks for all the great work you've done for the good senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance. I know she appreciates all your efforts in helping to move things forward, keep the train running on time here in the General Assembly. So we wish you all the best in your educational endeavors. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the dance team the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today in the gallery, we also are joined by players from the Dinwiddie Darlings softball team, Dinwiddie Angels softball team, and Dinwiddie Nationals Coach Pitch All-Stars baseball team. We are indeed in the presence of champions. In July of 2016, all 3 teams won state championships after going undefeated at the district level. Their success stretches from the baseball and softball fields into the classroom as well. I'm looking forward to great things coming our way from this group of athletes from Dinwiddie County. Mr. President, on behalf of the senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff, and I, we ask that you give these wonderful young men and women the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Dinwiddie softball team please rise?
Softball team, Darlings, Dinwiddie Angels, all of them.
Wow, what a great group we have with us this morning, and look like some really future athletes amongst us. So we appreciate you all visiting with us here today, and sound like you all have done a great job in your baseball and softball, perhaps, and we wish you the best in the future. So we hope you have a great day here visiting in our capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Dinwiddie softball teams the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of 2 introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you. It's such a great blessing to be a senator that is local to the Capitol because it makes it possible for your constituents to come visit you, especially on President's Day, when I particularly celebrate that Virginia loaned 8 of its sons to the federal government for a short period of time. So they're here to look at Mr. Jefferson's Capitol and see us in action. And I would first like to welcome Jack, Will, and Anna Burgoyne, who are here visiting, and they're here with Ed Rhodes.
Thank you, Senator. Would Mr. Ed Rhodes and then Jack, Will, and Anna Burgoyne please rise? Well, thank you all for being here with us today and visiting Mr. Jefferson's Capitol. And just as a good senator from Henrico said, there's a tremendous amount of history here in Richmond. So hopefully you'll have a chance to walk around and take a lot of that in. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mr. Ed Rhodes and Jack, Will, and Anna Burgoyne the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Henrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to introduce a longtime friend, Ellen Borge, who's here with her daughter, who I actually met on the day she was born. And so I hope you will welcome them to the Senate.
Thank you. Would Peyton and Ellen Borges please rise? Wow, what a treat to have you all here, and you have grown up so nicely into a beautiful young lady. So it's great to have had a great doctor that helped bring you into the world. So I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Peyton and Ellen Borges the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I actually have 2. The first one, you met these folks earlier in the rotunda, Gary and Danielle McKenzie. I don't think they have a green sheet, but they are transplants from pretty much all over the United States. Gary's an executive with Geico, as we talked about, and they had the neat opportunity to meet His Excellency the Governor today as well. So they've met the top 2 folks. If you'll give the warm welcome to Gary and Danielle McKenzie, and then I'll have one after.
Thank you, Senator. Would Gary and Danielle McKenzie please rise? Well, thank you for joining us today, and it was a pleasure to meet you a bit earlier, and we just hope you're having a wonderful visit today, and hope all is well in Fredericksburg for you. Safe travels back home. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Gary and Danielle McKenzie the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Spotsylvania.
Yes, Mr. President. In the gallery today, I saw my seatmate run up there to help because I think his wife has her hands full. But in the gallery today is the rest of the Sturdivant clan, his wife Lori, Ethan, age 7, Reed, 4, and Emily, 3, and it's a day off. So I got a feeling my seatmate's going to be busy later on this afternoon when he gets home. So, Mr. President, if you would give the Sturdivant family the warm welcome of the Senate, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Emily Sturdivant and your beautiful family please rise? Thank you all so much for being with us today. And as I've said before, and you've heard me say this, the senators always behave a lot better when their spouses are here. So we appreciate you being here today, and any other time you can come visit us. But what a beautiful family you have, and I know you must be proud. And thanks for letting your husband help us move the Commonwealth forward. We dearly appreciate that from you. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ms. Sturdivant and her beautiful family the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of 2 introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a huge responsibility in getting this right. My seatmate, the senior senator from Loudoun, does this for me every time that I have a little kid who chooses to play hooky from school, and I never, ever get to return the favor. So this is a really big deal for me. Please join me in welcoming his family and some of his very close friends in the gallery today. Michelle Staton is the daughter of Senator Black, I know known to many of us. Michelle managed and won 12 contested elections for her dad and continues to play a key role in many other successful campaigns across Virginia. Michelle and her dad are very close, as I know from lots of stories that we've shared. And without giving away her age, I will tell you that he says he's been going on walks with her for 40 plus years, and that's really special. Michelle is accompanied by 3 of her 4 sons, Michael, Adam, and Brian. And we understand that there's also one very pampered not boy princess at home who's not in the gallery, unfortunately. Also in the gallery today is Callie Chaplow, Senator Black's valued aide when he was a member of the House of Delegates. Callie continues to help out with Senator Black's campaigns and with running his home office. And she, too, is accompanied today by 3 of her 4 sons, Douglas, Robert, and Alex, I apologize. Michelle and Callie both homeschooled their children together, and they even took the 8 of them on a 2-week road trip across the country this year. Wow. So it's no wonder that my seatmate is exceedingly proud of both of these women, and I know that to be true because he has shared many, many, many wonderful stories about them and about their family. So with that, Mr. President, I ask that you please extend to them the very, very warm welcome of the Senate and make up for the many times that he has done that for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Would Michelle Staton and your family and your guests please rise? Well, thank you all so much for visiting us, and wow, what another beautiful family we have. We've had so many nice families come through today, I guess on President's Day when folks perhaps aren't in school. And I understand you all are homeschooling, and what a great option that is for students across the Commonwealth. So we appreciate you helping with your dad. I know you must have had a wonderful relationship, and that's wonderful, and appreciate your assistant helping the good senator. So we wish you all the best, and keep working hard in school. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Michelle Staton and your visitors the warm welcome of the Senate. I'm sorry. The senator
Thank you,
from
Mr. President. I have a second introduction. Like so many others of my colleagues, I am very, very honored to have had interns that did so much work for me, and I also have interns who are in the gallery today. They are very special, and they did so much hard work. The first is Juliana Lopiccolo, and the second is John Rukoski, and they volunteered their time and considerable talents to my office this session. Juliana is a native New Yorker, and she's a junior at the University of Richmond, where she has a double major in political science and leadership, and she is also on the pre-law track. Among a number of other activities, she's a junior senator in UR's student government. Juliana aspires to be an elected official at the state level in the future. John, whose family is from Chantilly, is a senior at VCU majoring in biology with minors in chemistry and political science. He's considering attending graduate school for biology, and he too hopes to be involved in politics in his career. John is currently the VP of the College Republicans at VCU. So with that, Mr. President, I would ask that you please extend to them the very warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Juliana Lopiccolo and John Rukoski please rise? Thank you all for joining us this morning, and thanks for all of your great work for the senator from Falk here. And so we have a spider and a ram amongst us, right? And I know you all had a big basketball game this weekend, and I won't comment on the results of that. But thanks for being here, and thanks for all the great work you've done, and we wish you the best in your educational endeavors. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering John and Juliana the warm welcome of the Senate. The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for 2 introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Joining us in the gallery, we have 2 constituents of mine who are taking advantage of President's Day and the day off. First, we have Josie Arthur, who is a freshman studying musical theater at Appomattox Regional Governor's School for Arts and Technology. She's performed in numerous productions with Spark and is part of the a cappella group at her school, and I expect one day we will see her on Broadway. And she is here with Heidi Abbott, and I ask that we give her a warm welcome of the Senate.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Would Josie Arthur and Miss Heidi Abbott please rise? Thank you all for visiting us today, and hope you're having a wonderful day. I know you're with a great friend of mine up here that's showing you around, so I know you're in good hands, and just hope you have an enjoyable visit today in Mr. Jefferson's capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Josie Arthur and Ms. Heidi Abbott the warm welcome of the Senate. The junior senator from Richmond City.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also have joining us in the gallery today Ethan Lynn, who is 12 years old and attends Liberty Middle School, and he decided to spend his free day observing the legislative process. He's been involved as a volunteer in political campaigns in his district, and he is looking forward to applying for the PAGE program next year, so he figured he should come down and see what all was involved in that. And I ask that we give him the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Mr. Ethan Lynn please rise? Ethan, it's great to see you up in the gallery, and I appreciate you coming and helping out in the Lieutenant Governor's office this morning, and we couldn't have gotten anything done if you hadn't been here helping us this morning. So, and I also would invite you to look around. We have some great pages here. It's a great program, and hope you'll put your application in for next year. So we look forward to seeing you back here in Virginia's capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ethan Lynn the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I have a constituent here today in the gallery, Justin Fairfax from Annandale, from Fairfax County, that is, and he's come down to be inducted into a secret fraternity and sorority, I might add, of people that have run for lieutenant governor. A few members here, including myself, gentlelady from Fauquier, gentleman from Spotsylvania, and our president, little known fact, is a senior senator from Fairfax County. So we'll be inducting him later. With the ceremony will be after the session. And I hope we can greet him warmly.
Thank you, Senator. Would Justin Fairfax, welcome to the gallery this morning. And a couple of things I would say. Thank you for stepping up to the plate, along with other folks that choose to serve the public. It's a tremendous privilege. It's also a tremendous responsibility. And I can just tell you and everybody else, it's been a tremendous privilege to serve the Commonwealth as the Lieutenant Governor. It's hard to believe that this is my fourth and last year, but we certainly appreciate other good folks stepping up to take my place. And so we wish you the best and safe travels. I know it's a lot of time for all of us as we travel around the Commonwealth, but we wish you the best. And again, we appreciate you doing what you're doing, and we thank you for being with us today. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mr. Justin Fairfax the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of two introductions.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. With us today in the gallery is Natalie Daniel, and she's accompanied by her mother, Martha Daniel. Natalie is a hopeful page. She is a year-round competitive swimmer, and she's shadowing me today to learn more about the legislative process. And I'm sure one day she will put in her application to be a page. Martha Daniel and her family actually have been residing in the Commonwealth since 1662. And the family donated the land to build the Fort Union Military Academy. So just as a point of reference, Mr. President, I ask that the Senate give Natalie and Martha Daniel a warm welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Would Natalie and Martha Daniel please rise? Well, welcome. And we do have a great program. We're very proud of our PAGE program, so we encourage you to put an application in whenever the time is appropriate for you. And thanks for coming and visiting the good senator from Arlington. You're here watching a great person. She does so well for her constituents. So I would thank you for being here, and I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Natalie and Martha Daniel the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also joining us today is a constituent of mine, Nancy Bleeker. Nancy is a former social worker and longtime advocate for progressive values. Today she is here with the League of Conservation Voters and Moms for Clean Air. She and her colleagues will be educating lawmakers on the importance of environmental issues and how we should best address these challenging environmental issues. So again, I ask that the Senate give Nancy Bleeker a warm welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Nancy Bleeker please rise? Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks for making the trip here to Mr. Jefferson's Capitol. We hope you have a wonderful visit this afternoon. If you can stay around, you'll see a little bit about how policy is made here in the Commonwealth. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Miss Nancy Bleeker the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President Rice, for an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, joining us in the gallery today, I'm very honored to tell you all, is a group called the Penny Pals. And they are young folks from Rodney Thompson Middle School in Stafford County. They're taking part in their school's project called Destination Imagination, and they're here to spread a message that doing good makes sense. Mr. President, the reason they're called Penny Pals is because they give away a penny with a little message. You're a good role model, Mr. President.
That's right.
That's what this means. So you can tell I'm looking to find someone to pass this on to. So anyway, they give you a penny, and it means that you are a good role model, but it also encourages you to do good things. So once you get it, you have to find another person who's a good role model to pass it on to. So I put everybody on notice. I'm looking. Mr. President, it was. Let me tell you, these are really impressive young people.
They are.
I got the opportunity to sit down with them and chat with them for a while this morning, and I was so proud of what they're doing and impressed by what they're doing. Just really fine young people, and they're spreading an excellent message. So, Mr. President, I'd ask that you give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
I agree with you, Senate. Would members from Penny Pals please rise? And one of you looked like Abe Lincoln a little while ago, and now you've come out of your costume. But thank you all so much, one, for being here to share some time with the good senators from across the Commonwealth. And also thanks for stopping by my office and sharing a penny with me for hopefully being a good role model. And I'll try to spread the word. But, you know, you are our future. And so all of you, we're very proud of you for being such good role models and doing so many good things for our communities and especially for Virginia. So we hope you have a wonderful visit here today, and thank you all so much for all you do. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members of Penny Pals the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the Senate, I have visitors today from my district, Mrs. Tua Ray Brown and family. Her family is here for the first time. I gave them a mini tour of the Capitol. And, Mr. President, they're with a group called Moms Today. And, Mr. President, also before I became a member of the House of Lords, Mrs. Brown gave me the Virginia League of Conservation Voters for 100%, 2016. That's down the hall of the other body. So I wish you were welcome, Mrs. Brown and her family, to the Capitol today. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Ms. Brown and your family and guests please rise? Welcome to the gallery, and I'm glad you all are here keeping an eye on the good senator from Chesapeake, Senator Spruill. He's finally in the upper chamber, as we call this in the Senate. And so we're very glad to have him here, and he's doing a great job. So you tell all your friends and neighbors at home that Senator Spruill is doing a good job for his constituents and for Virginia. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members of the Brown family the warm welcome of the Senate. Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Well, Mr. President, you threw me off. I don't have a green sheet, but apparently you do. So I assume my guest from, oh, there it is, magically appeared. Mr. President, members of the Senate, I have in the gallery a group of 7th grade civic or civics students? Civic students from Cornerstone Christian School in Rockingham County. And Mr. President, if our neighborhood grammarian is still in doubt as to which is the appropriate name for the class, I'm sure that the teacher, Simone Berge, who is accompanying these students from Cornerstone Christian School, would be more than happy to spend a little bit of time with our grammarians and teach them the difference between civic and civics education. I would ask you to extend this to this group the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from Cornerstone Christian School and Ms. Simone Berge please rise? Wow, what a great group you have. And we're so pleased that you took time on President's Day to come visit us in Mr. Jefferson's capital. There's a tremendous amount of history we have here, so hopefully you'll be able to take some of that in today. And thanks for, again, being able to watch how policy is made in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Cornerstone Christian School the warm welcome of the Senate. Is there any other business for the morning hour? I know there are some guests that I have not recognized, and we certainly appreciate you all being here today, and hope you have a great visit this afternoon. If you can stick around for a little bit, you'll see again how some policy and laws are made in Virginia. So we welcome all of you to the gallery of the Senate today. I would ask the clerk to please call the calendar. Yes.
Senate calendar for Monday, February 20th, 2017, page 4. Unfinished business House. House Bill 1534. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Bedford, Senator
I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
House Bill 1854. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
The Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate insist on our substitute and request a committee conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 1926. The House has rejected the Senate amendment.
The Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that we insist on the Senate substitute and have a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 0. Rule 36-2.
Ayes 38, noes 0. Rule 36-2. The motion is agreed to.
House Bill 2024. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
The Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
We are awaiting House action on the remaining bills. Page 8, unfinished business Senate. Senate Bill 1178 has passed the House with a substitute.
The Senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate concur with the House substitute.
If you could speak to that briefly, Senator.
I will. This bill deals with regulating buprenorphine, and it says that in addition that buprenorphine without naloxone will only be issued to ladies who are pregnant and in addition, patients that are being converted from methadone, and also allows the regulations of the board to concur.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
Senate Bill 1416 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that we agree to the substitute in speaking that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is the bill that relates to the investment trust. The Senate Finance Committee had a substitute that tried to get further there, and then the substitute that you see before us is the last one that the Senate Finance Committee worked out, and so if it goes through here, it will be identical to the one we had on the House.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1516 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House and Senate have some variations in approach. It's not entirely certain where we will end up, but I think we need to talk a little bit more. And so I recommend that we insist on the Senate substitute and request a committee of conference.
You need to reject the House substitute.
Senator, you would need to reject the House substitute first if you want to do that.
Yes, I move that we reject the House substitute.
With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 0, noes 40.
Ayes 0, noes 40. The House substitute is rejected.
Senate Bill 1527 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I would move that we accept the House substitute. The major difference between the bill that Delegate Cox has and the one that I had was that his bill requires that slightly larger grants be given as the student progresses from freshman through to senior year. The whole purpose of this program, by the way, is to make sure people graduate in 4 years rather than keep accumulating debt. And mine was permissive with respect to the Department of Education. So it's not a major change. He agreed to the full-time provision that I had last year when both bills died in conference. But I would recommend that we accept the House substitute. We had pretty much agreed on this, but with the Senate Finance Committee.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1577 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Mr. President, I move that we concur with the House substitute in speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill involves on-site inspection of small sewage systems, and it has gone through many changes, but we agree with the substitute that has come out of the House. This bill will allow for a study to be done on these small flow septic systems. It will be reported back to the General Assembly at the end of the year, and I move that it be accepted and passed.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1180, the House insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
The senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move that the Senate accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the House request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain, if you wanted to take this up now, it would be good, if that's okay.
This would be a good time?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. President. If I can shuffle all my papers. Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 17 of House Joint Resolution 555, which is our scheduling resolution, I move that the Senate do now suspend the special and continuing joint order relating to judicial elections until tomorrow, Tuesday, February 21st, 2017.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, pursuant to Rule 17 of HJR 555, the scheduling resolution, shall the Senate suspend the special and continuing joint order relating to judicial elections until Tuesday, February 21st, 2017? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. The special and continuing joint order is suspended until Tuesday, February 21st, 2017.
We are awaiting House action on the remaining bills in that section. Uncontested calendar, House bills on third reading.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Over here, Mr. President, I would now respectfully move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, including all bills on pages 12 through 40, including House Bill 1525 through House Bill 2474, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator who desires to remove one of the House bills from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 12 through 40, House Bill 1525 through House Bill 2474, be placed upon their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
House Bill 1525, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice, and there are 2 floor substitutes.
Which one you? The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, I would move that we reject the first floor substitute, or waive reading of the first floor substitute.
Senator, if you could just pull it out of the block, if that'd be all right, and then we'll come back to it.
Pull it out of the block and deal with it later.
You want to do it now? Okay. All right, Senator, you had the floor. Your motion, if you could
waive reading of the first floor substitute.
Which one are you going to withdraw? He's going to withdraw too.
Thank you. The question is, shall the reading of the floor substitute number 1 be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor substitute is waived. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, I move that we reject the first floor substitute. I move that with the recommendation we reject it, I move we adopt the first floor substitute. Oh, I can withdraw it? I'll move to withdraw it if I can.
The Senate will stand at ease. senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, I'd move to withdraw the first floor substitute.
Without objection, the first floor substitute will be withdrawn. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, I'd move to waive reading in the second floor substitute.
We already did that, Senator. So now you just speak to
the second one.
Okay. The question is, shall the reading of the second floor substitute be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading is waived. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, I'd move that we adopt the second floor substitute in speaking to that.
All right. Senator has the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill, I'm not sure if it's been explained by the chairman of courts yet to the body, but the bill is written. Basically, what it's trying to do is deal with out-of-state DWI convictions and administrative suspensions by the DMV. So basically what happens is if somebody's convicted of a driving while intoxicated offense outside the state of Virginia, the DMV is currently empowered to take administrative action based on that under certain circumstances. When I started practicing about 20 years ago, the Department of Motor Vehicles' position was that an out-of-state conviction had to be substantially similar to a Virginia conviction before they would count it. And many out-of-state offenses are very different from Virginia's law. They criminalize conduct which is different from Virginia's law. And because you often can't tell when you look at the out-of-state conviction abstract, the DMV frequently would not count those. In the last 4 or 5 years, the DMV has changed its practice and started looking at lots of things, which I will just say is, I can get into it specifically if anyone wants to, but are very difficult for anybody to deal with in court. And basically, Delegate Albo put in this legislation to try and restore the practice in Virginia to what it had been for the last 20 years. The bill got amended in the House Courts Committee, came over here. The substitute you have in front of you, I've checked with the patron. He's comfortable with it. It basically says that the Department of Motor Vehicles can only administratively suspend it for an out-of-state conviction if it is substantially similar, and they can only base their review on whatever the conviction document from the other state shows. They can't do some independent factual investigation or anything else, and it's consistent with what the practice was when I started practicing 20 years ago. I would also note that it also provides a retroactivity provision which says that if anybody who has been unfairly administratively suspended over the last 10 years wants to get their suspension reviewed, they can do that. And as I said, I think the patron is comfortable with it the way it is, and I would move that we pass the substitute, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1851, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1855, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1693, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2034. The committee amendments have been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 2230, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2281. The committee amendment has been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 2037, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor, and there is a floor substitute.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, can we pull that out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 2037 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1616, the committee substitute and committee amendment have been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 1856, the committee substitute from Finance has been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 22...
Mr. President.
The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Can House Bill 1616 on page 16 please come out?
Without objection, House Bill 1616 will come out of the block.
House Bill 2251, reported from the Committee on Finance with amendments.
The senator from Augusta County, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I would ask that that bill go by for the day. Or out of the block and by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 2251 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1401, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Mr. President, could that bill come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 1401 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1408, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
Mr. President, could that bill come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 1408 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1414, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1437, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1491, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1508, reported from the Committee on Education and Health, and there is a floor amendment.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Hello, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the amendment be waived.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senator from Arlington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendment be agreed to, and speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, what this amendment does is it merely conforms the House bill to the Senate bill, Senate version, and the Senate bill passed this body 39-0. It is a technical change. It identifies the code in the section where we refer to regulations, and that is the extent of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1519, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1524, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendment.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1538, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1544, reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
Mr. President?
The senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, could that bill come out of the block, please?
Without objection, House Bill 1544 will come out of the block.
Mr. President.
The senator from Franklin County.
Thank you. Going back to page 17, can HB 2251 come out of the block and go by for the day, please?
Yes, sir. That motion has already been made.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
House Bill 1579, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1590, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1609, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1661, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1662, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1687, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1689, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendment.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1691, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1708, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1709, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1737, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1775, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendments.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move that committee amendments be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 1811, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1816, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 1836, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1848, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1910, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1929, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1941, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
Mr. President.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Can House Bill 1941 come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 1941 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1944, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1946, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1981, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1982, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1993, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 1996, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendment.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2015, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2016, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendments.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2022, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2023, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
Mr. President.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeSteff.
Can House Bill 2023 be pulled from the block and go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 2023 will come out of the block and by for the day.
House Bill 2026, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Senator from Grayson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2066, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2095, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2136, reported from the Committee on Transportation, and there is a floor amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I waive the reading of the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senator from
Now I move that the floor amendment be agreed to.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, HB 2136 amendment is a technical amendment. It strikes and inserts to T-O, not as in Terrell Owens, but T-O. I'd ask that we accept the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2137, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill
Mr. President.
The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Can House Bill 2066 on page 33 come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 2066 will come out of the block.
House Bill 2137, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2138, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2139, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2149, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2171, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2239, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2258, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2269, reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2300, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2327, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. This substitute is agreed to. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, can House Bill 2327 come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 2327 will come out of the block.
House Bill 2331, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2336, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2341, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2350, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendments.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendments.
Question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 2367, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2379, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 2404, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendments.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 2429, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice. House Bill 2463, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 2474, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 2037, 1616, 2251, 1401, 1408, 1544, 1941, 2023, 2066, and 2327. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The bills in the block pass. The senator from Stafford.
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side by which the block passed, I'd ask we reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which the bills in the block pass be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The motion is agreed to. The question is, shall the bills in the block pass? Would you like me to read these again, or are we good? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bills in the block pass. Returning to page 16. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having been distributed, we have a floor amendment, I believe.
Yes, Senator.
I'd move waiving of the reading of the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Well, I thank all my good friends over here, who I thought were my friends, Mr. President. But let me explain the bill, and then I'll explain the underlying amendment, if I could, Mr. President.
Excuse me, sir. The senator from Bedford, I think, has a question.
Mr. President, before the gentleman gets too far, I'd like to ask the chair whether or not the floor substitute is germane. Mr. President, speaking to that.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the gentleman from Virginia Beach has prepared a floor substitute that certainly reflects some of his previous legislation. I understand his support thereof. But, Mr. President, in this case, I think it's very clear that it does violate the single objection rule to the Virginia Constitution. This bill basically would piggyback upon the health insurance calculation section of the code, the assignment of benefit section. Mr. President, with that, I'd like to yield to the senator from Rockingham as well.
The senator from Rockingham.
President, I hate piling on, but I would also inquire, Mr. President, as to germaneness. The title of the bill, as introduced, refers to health insurance, calculation of cost-sharing provisions. Mr. President, there's no mention in the bill's title of any assignment of an insurance benefit to a health care provider, which is the subject of the amendment. The amendment expands the purpose of the bill to encompass a subject matter that is not contained in the bill as introduced. Mr. President, it is made evident by the fact that the assignment of benefits amendment, the amendment that is on the desk, it really relates to assignment of insurance benefits. It's drawn to a different code section even than the original cost-sharing provision. The amendment would change the purpose. It would change the scope of the bill. It's not a logical sequence to go from the original scope and purpose of the bill, that is calculating the amount that an insured has to pay his health care provider when an insurer owes nothing to the provider, to what the subject of this floor amendment is, and that is a process under which the insurer can make a binding assignment of an insurance payment to a provider. In the context of the original bill, this would be an assignment of a benefit that's zero, since the original bill is calculating the payment due to the insured by a provider when no payment is due by from the insurer to the provider. Mr. President, this just stands logic on its head, and I would ask Mr. President whether, in addition to whether the floor amendment violates the single object rule, as to whether the floor amendment also is germane.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator.
Mr. President, on first blush, I might agree with the last two speakers. However, after reading the complete title, which states Code of Virginia relating to health insurance, calculation of cost-sharing provisions, payments to non-participating physicians, and then when you read line 42, this is in direct association with the title of this. So when we talk about germaneness, normally it has to be non-germane or germane, and I believe this to be definitely germane.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Mr. President. And speaking to the bill, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to explain the bill, nor that it's not an assignment of benefits. I would take a different tack, Mr. President, if I could. If you read lines 41 through 43, all it does is require a dual endorsement of a check. And so what happens is if you have a network provider or out-of-network provider, in the case of perhaps, say, Chesapeake Hospital, the emergency room. So you get in an accident in the emergency room or somewhere in Chesapeake and you're hauled into the emergency room at Chesapeake General Hospital. Those emergency room doctors are not in the network. They're not in the network. And so the way the code reads today is that if you're not in a network, that the check, the normal and usual customary check would be sent not to the provider, but actually to the patient itself. And it's up to the patient to then take that check and provide it to the provider for those services. All we're asking here is because sometimes that check, as you might imagine, comes to the patient and they says, wow, check from the insurance company goes right into their bank account, as opposed to coming back to the provider. All we're saying here is that he's got to take the check, the patient needs to take the check back to the doctor that provided the service and get 2 endorsements. Get the doctor's endorsement. It has nothing to do with any balance billing or nothing else. It just says merely that gives the opportunity for the doctor to get paid if he happens to be out of network for just the amount that the insurance company would otherwise pay to a doctor that is in the network, and that's all it does. So, Mr. President, I would say that when I read the full title of it, Payments to Non-Participating Physicians, as part of the title, that definitely this bill should be considered germane.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from James City County, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. President. Having more than a casual understanding of the germaneness rule, I would rise and suggest, Mr. President, that with all due respect to the extremely senior senator from Virginia Beach, which the advanced age may have clouded his judgment on this just a little bit. But, Your Honor, Mr. President, I would suggest that you've heard a couple of points, but on germaneness, there are some other considerations, as you certainly know better than I, sir. The first thing, does the amendment deal with a different topic or subject? And it certainly seems, in this instance, to be expanding it, and it clearly is an assignment of benefits issue, which you, being a pediatric neurologist, would certainly know about that, sir. A second consideration, does it unreasonably expand the subject matter of the original bill? And I think clearly the amended language does that. Thirdly, does the language in the substitute basically raise an independent question? And I think clearly that the assignment of benefit does. Another relevant issue is whether or not it changes the purpose, the scope, or the objective of the original bill. And I think clearly by just the characterizations that you have already heard that it does that. And finally, it's not just what's contained in the title, but would the amendment require an actual change in the title itself to more appropriately reflect that which is the intent of the amendment and the nature of the substitute? And I'd respectfully request that you find this is not germane, sir.
Thank you, Senator. And I do appreciate all of your all's input and comment. I've had a chance to look at this not only on Friday but over the weekend, and my ruling is that the substitute is not germane. The senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would move that the bill, having been adequately explained in its original form, pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2037 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes. Moving forward to 1616, the senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking of the bill, Mr. President, this bill is one that we've seen for a couple of years running. It deals with felony homicide in cases in which a drug dealer provides an opiate or drug that causes an overdose death. This is substantially the same format in which this bill left this chamber last year and probably the year before. It is one that provides an accommodation defense. And, Mr. President, I would respectfully submit this is an important tool for law enforcement in fighting the proliferation of opiates, particularly in the northern Shenandoah Valley and across northern Virginia. And with that, Mr. President, I would ask that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1616 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The bill passes. Moving to page 20 of the calendar, House Bill 1401, the senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass and speak in the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is a bill that relates to free speech on college campuses. If you read over the bill and the amendment that has been attached to it, I would hope that we would all agree with the desire to pass a bill like this or have this be the policy of the Commonwealth because it somewhat just reflects the Constitution of the United States and Constitution of Virginia. The bill could be argued whether or not we need it if those items are embedded in those locations, but this bill ensures our institutions of higher learning know that they need to encourage healthy debate and prevent any type of censorship based on that information. Mr. President, I hope that we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Bath County, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I wonder if my friend from Bedford would just answer a couple of questions.
Would the senator yield for a question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
Mr. President, I asked the gentleman what examples were given for the need of this language.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, in our committee, there was not examples that were given. It was a discussion based on the desire to ensure that the college campuses don't get into either a politically correct or a politically incorrect mode, but instead that they are allowing for free speech. There was not an example given, Mr. President.
The senator from Bath.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for an additional question?
The senator, he yields, Senator.
President, I yield.
Well, Mr. President, I'd ask the gentleman if he thinks this language would abridge the right of a school to cancel an event that, for example, that promised or threatened to bring acts of violence on one side or other of some sort of political debate.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I would say that it did not. There was not in committee but offline discussions about that, and it is anticipated that if you currently were allowed to avoid that speech based on threats or other items, that you could continue to do that, but this would be somewhat declaratory of current constitutional practice.
The senator from Bath.
I thank the gentleman. I'd like to speak to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this language looks innocuous enough, except as otherwise permitted by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. No public institution of higher education shall abridge the constitutional freedom of any individual, including enrolled students, faculty, and other employees and invited guests to speak on campus. Well, I think that's already the policy of the Commonwealth and the country as expressed so eloquently in the Constitution of the United States. And it seems to me that it's akin to saying the sky is blue except on cloudy days, even on college campuses. But I'm not sure why we need to put that language in the Code of Virginia, or what we actually change when we put things like this in the Code of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I wish this wasn't necessary, and I really do hope that this is something around which liberals and conservatives, Republicans and Democrats can link arms. I mean, I don't think that there's anything more important to the Academy, to academic freedom, than the freedom of speech. And, I I think that there have been days in which conservatives have had their right to free speech suppressed, and liberals as well. And that pendulum swings back and forth. And if we don't affirm the right to free speech, then the heck with the principle of academic freedom. And we've got examples that abound across the country of colleges and universities that have been unilaterally making decisions as to what's appropriate political speech on campus. And one of the aspects of academic freedom is, free speech is uncomfortable at times. And it has to be a two-way street in order for it to be able to work. And, Mr. President, I would respectfully submit that all of these free speech zones on campus, you know what they mean? It means that there's not free speech on campus, except at certain times and in certain places. And this simply reaffirms, I wish it wasn't necessary to tell our colleges and universities that they are free speech zones, the entire campus of the college and university, and that university administrators can't suppress speech just because it's uncomfortable, whether it's a socialist talking on campus or somebody who articulates aberrant ideas on the right. Mr. President, those are the uncomfortable aspects of speech that are really the foundation of this republic. And one of the foundational reasons why we have the First Amendment. So, Mr. President, I would hope that we would all vote for this.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thanks. Would the senator from Rockingham yield for a question?
Would the senator yield for a question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
I would preface my question by saying I like the spirit of this bill and plan to vote for it. But I did just want to ask a clarification. From reading it, it says invited guests, you can't abridge their freedom of speech, which is great. But what if you want to uninvite them, not for any political reason or for any controversy among the student body, but you just want to uninvite them? Maybe you invite someone who believes in your group's goals, but then they say something contrary to it, and not because of pressure from the rest of the campus or from the administration, you decide not to host them. Does that allow you to withdraw an invitation?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, the answer to that question is yes, it does. But what it does is if, let's just say, that the college Young Democrats or the college Republicans invite a speaker and a conflict arises, or they decide they don't want to have that speaker anymore, they're free to uninvite that speaker. However, the administration, the dean of students or whatever, the dean of speech on campus or whatever it is, can't come in and say, college Young Democrats, we are concerned about the ideas and the things that your speaker is going to talk about. And we're concerned that it may upset people, that it may be too uncomfortable, that it may trigger too many trigger warnings on campus. The university should not be able to step over that bound and tell the college Young Democrats that they can't have that speaker. That's what this is about.
Thank you, sir.
I thank the gentleman for the clarification.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1401 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The bill passes. House Bill 1408, the senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, and speaking that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill was changed a bit as it came through in the substitute, but as the bill currently exists, it is a comprehensive vision program for children in school, either in K or second grade, third grade, seventh grade, and 10th grade. Mr. President, this bill no longer speaks of any type of diagnosis process. It does speak about best practices, and it does, in Section 2, come up with an advisory panel that will assist us with the process. Mr. President, in Sections 3, 4, and 5, it ensures that the parents will get the results of all the screening information, and in line 37 through 41, there's a definition of who is a qualified nonprofit nonprofit Vision Health Organization. I would hope that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike.
Mr. President, will the senator from Bedford yield for a question?
Will the senator yield for a question?
Mr. President, I yield.
He yields, Senator.
With the changes that the gentleman just identified, would this relieve some concerns I've heard from folks like the Lions Club from participating in some of the screenings that they do as well?
The senator from
Mr. President, the Lions turned the tail on this, and they are now perfectly fine.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senators. The question is, shall House Bill 1408 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The bill passes. Moving to page 23 of the calendar. House Bill 1544. The senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senator from Southern Fairfax.
Mr. President, what the floor amendment does is it makes sure that the underlying bill here does not affect the charity care commitments that have been made by medical care providers when those charity care commitments are for an entire system, and that has been accepted by the Commissioner. What the underlying bill does is say that if a facility has multiple charity care commitments for different services and different applications for which it's received approval, if it's below its charity care commitment in one particular category, it can count the surplus in another category as long as it's in the same facility. This just makes sure that that doesn't override the existing provisions as it relates to the entire systems.
Thank you, Senator.
And this has been agreed to by the patron of the House.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I just wanted to indicate that I appreciate the senator coming up with the floor amendment. It does help fill in a hole that was in the bill as it came through committee, and I would hope we would adopt the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. If you could make a motion to adopt that amendment, Senator.
Mr. President, I move that the floor amendment be adopted.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I hope that the bill pass. This is some needed alterations to the COPN laws, but nothing that goes to the point that is of any controversy, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1544 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could return to page 20 on House Bill 1408, I would ask we reconsider that vote by which that bill was passed, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1408 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, having previously been explained, I hope that we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1408 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. The bill passes. Moving to page 29 of the calendar. House Bill 1941. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to this, this is a counterpart to a bill that the senator from the senior senator for the city of Richmond carried. It started out as a wide-ranging bill that provided SLAPP suit protections for public speech outside of a public forum like letters or other comments as to matters of public concern. It also had in it protections for people who may engaged in commercial speech. That was removed from the bill and conformed to the senator from Richmond's version that passed out of here. And with that, Mr. President, I would move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Somerville.
Will the gentleman from Rockingham yield for a question?
Would the senator yield for a question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
The original bill, if I'm remembering right, included things like statements on Yelp or on product review sites or things like that. My read of this is that those kinds of statements are now out. Is that right?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, gentleman is correct. It previously contained broad immunity for certain commercial speech actions. That was removed.
Gentleman, yield for an additional question.
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
So the way I read it, it reads pretty broadly, and whenever we grant immunity to anybody for anything, it gives me a headache, as you know. And this says a matter of public concern is an issue properly before a governing body or an issue reasonably likely to encourage consideration or review by a governing body, which to me, you could argue that any governing body should consider almost anything. Would the gentleman agree with that?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I would suggest that you can suggest that, but it wouldn't always be reasonable.
Thank you, Senator.
Gentleman, yield for an additional question.
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I do.
He yields, Senator.
And just so I'm clear, if you want to encourage an issue for consideration to a governing body under this bill, you can basically lie about anything you want or anybody you want or defame anybody you want, and you cannot be sued if we pass this. Is that right?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I think that that is a gross overstatement of what this does, but it does provide a measure of immunity that is going to be subject to interpretation.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
I thank the gentleman.
The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Mr. President, speak to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
To answer the colleague's question, it does not cover statements that are made with knowledge that they are false or reckless disregard for falsity. So that's the existing bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1941 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The bill passes. Page 33 of the calendar. House Bill 2066. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to this bill essentially provides for Virginia to enter the National Crime Prevention and Privacy Compact. And what this bill really does is it allows the state police to exchange certain limited information for purposes of doing background checks and providing limited information about background to private parties who have a legitimate interest. Take, for example, our many barrier crimes bills that would prevent people from working in certain educational and other settings. It would allow the state police to engage in a background check for those individuals and ask, say, a private school, ask another state for information about the background of that applicant and make sure that we're able to access that information. So with that, I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2066 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes. On page 37, House Bill 2327, the senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Mr. President, this piece of legislation was the result of a U.S. Supreme Court decision that held that one cannot be criminally sanctioned, can't be punished criminally for refusal to give a blood sample as a result of a driving offense unless that sample is obtained pursuant to a warrant. Virginia, like other states, has held that you have impliedly given consent to have your blood drawn if you're pulled over in a DUI. And if you refused to allow your blood to be drawn, you would be susceptible to criminal sanctions and punishments, including incarceration. The Supreme Court says that's not permissible. So this really rather long bill is a very simple concept, basically going through all of our implied consent statutes dealing with blood draws and removing the criminal sanction, criminal penalties, and replacing it with civil sanctions and civil penalties instead.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2327 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
Regular calendar, House bills on third reading. House Bill 1554, a bill relating to the Property Owners Association Act, amendment of declaration. Reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology, and there is a floor amendment.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, even though I think making a motion to waive reading of the floor amendment will take longer than it will to read it, I waive reading of the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendment be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the floor amendment. Speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill has to do with homeowners associations, and basically the legislation is a response to a Supreme Court case. It basically reverses a Supreme Court case called Tvardik versus Powhatan Village Homeowners Association out of Williamsburg and James City County Circuit Court. I thought it was a rather well-written opinion by Justice Arthur Kelsey, and I usually don't agree with much what Justice Kelsey said, but I did this time. And this bill basically nukes his entire opinion. So the bill before you does two things. Even if this floor amendment is adopted, I'm still going to violate Mr. Jefferson's principle and vote against the entire bill. I want to make that known ahead of time. But with regard to the issue I want to focus on right now, to break this bill into two pieces, the way a homeowners association works is when you buy a home in a homeowners association, it's subject to what are called covenants or a declaration. That's a contract between all the homeowners in that neighborhood. And typically those covenants say they can only be amended by a supermajority vote. There's some out there that say majority. Most say 66%. Some of them go as high as 80%. And that document is sort of like the Constitution for your homeowners association. And it's a very important document because homeowners associations, basically, you give away your property rights when you join one of these. When you buy a home in one of these, you give away your property rights. And homeowners associations have frequently been trying to get these amended because they would like to get more power. They would like to make them, they'd like to change them, especially in the older associations. What Tvardik said was, if you read the code, what the code says is that if the homeowners association tries to change the Constitution, the covenants for that association, you have 1 year to challenge it after it becomes effective. And Justice Kelsey read through that and said, well, effective means that's when the homeowners association jumped through all the different hoops they have to jump through to change the rules. And one of the rules that we, the General Assembly, placed on them back in 1999 was that you can only change these documents by having every homeowner sign a piece of paper saying, I agree to change the Constitution for my homeowners association. A raising of the hands isn't sufficient because this is such an important decision you're making. You have to get signatures. And in that case, the homeowner association didn't get signatures. And so Kelsey said it was never effective, and so you could challenge it for more than a year. You could challenge it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. If the HOA didn't follow the rules, you could always challenge the declaration. By changing it to recorded, which is what this bill would do, what you do is you basically immunize the homeowners association for breaking the law. So basically, a homeowners association could break the rules in terms of how they change their constitution between homeowners, file that piece of paper with land records, and a homeowner could only fight that for 1 year, even if the law was broken, even if the rules were broken, even if the process was broken. And from my perspective, Mr. President, that's wrong. You got to remember that many of these HOAs can be pretty small. Some of them can be as small as like 5 or 10 houses. They're not professionally run. They're run by volunteers. And I have seen them intentionally break rules. I've seen them do things behind closed doors. I've seen them violate all kinds of rules. And basically what this does, it allows HOA boards to immunize themselves. They could say, we took a vote to change these. The president could sign off a document, stick it in land records, and you'd be barred from forever challenging it if you don't figure it out for 1 year. Because I'm sure all of you have looked at the land records for your property in the last year to see what anybody's recorded against your home. I'm sure you all have, right? So basically, this just keeps the law the way it is. From my perspective, it's worked fine. The homeowners association industry doesn't like the Tvardik decision. They thought Justice Kelsey was wrong. All he said was, I'm reading the law you guys wrote, and I think we ought to keep it the way it is. And I think that taking that out of this bill will make it a little bit better. It won't make it great, but it'll make it a little bit better. I would hope we adopt the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I too must admit I'm going to vote against this bill either way, but this does make it a little better. The gentleman from Fairfax is exactly right. You literally could change the covenants, violate people's private property rights, record that, and you wouldn't have a cause of action to fix it. There'd be no way to fix it. So I hope this makes it a little more palatable, even though it's a horrible bill to start with. It's just a little bit better, so I hope y'all will support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. And speaking to the amendment, I would recommend that the amendment be rejected. This amendment would make it less clear as to when a court challenge could be made.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, should the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to. The senator from Fauquier County. 2, 3. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff. They're going up and down faster than I can count them.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that the gentleman from Eastern Fairfax probably described the bill pretty well. I would also say that the bill simply makes I'd move that the bill does pass. The bill simply makes the Virginia Property Owners Association Act consistent with the Virginia Condominium Act on certifying amendments. Without the legislation, it could void all prior changes that had been previously made, and voting no puts this into question the validity of hundreds of declarations that have been amended in accordance with their requirements. I renew my motion.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak against this bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, the senator from Eastern Fairfax is exactly correct. You know, we have one of the most sacred things called property ownership. And the history of the homeowners associations, POAs, HOAs, however you want to call them, are that they are government created. And really the history, Mr. President, members of this body, of this government creation of a basically quasi-local government is that otherwise a lot of these larger neighborhoods might create towns and cities. And so in order to avoid that, you allow these homeowners associations to kind of come together. But in doing so, it changes the whole context of your property and your rights within that to use your property. and you subject yourself when you buy a house to a homeowners association. Part of that transaction is they give you the packet and say, do you agree to these rules? And if you do, you can move forward with the closing. If you don't, you can leave. You can reject the contract, not lose your deposit or anything, because these are rules that run with the land, as we say in the law. They run with your title in your deed. And so when you set up these little governments, they have this incredible power then to change even after you've signed on or agreed to what was existing in your property and in the calls of in the running with your deed. They can change it again. So I'm reminded some of the best majority opinion writing I've read on these property owners and homeowners association is found in the Tavares case. Stephen Tavares versus Powhatan Village Homeowners Association. 2016, just happened, just released 1 year ago. In that, the majority wrote, Code Section 55-515.1F is conspicuously precise. Written by the General Assembly, Mr. President. It requires the certification to verify that the requisite majority signed the amendment or ratifications thereof. There is a difference between adopting an amendment and signing it or some written ratification of it. In theory, a requisite majority could simply make a show of hands at an association meeting and thereby adopt an amendment. This code section, however, demands the extra precaution of requiring that the members voting in favor of the amendment verify that vote with their signatures. So no doubt as to discourage quarrelsome disputes between neighbors about who voted for what and when. Powerful words, Mr. President, but he goes on in the conclusion, which I think is most important for us. Remember, the General Assembly created these homeowners associations, Mr. President, and they did so with precision as is stated in this opinion. Justice Kelsey says the Virginia Property Owners Association Act authorizes the creation and enforcement of restrictive covenants against non-consenting landowners in a manner unknown to the common law. The General Assembly, us, however, police the imposition of these covenants with a host of strict procedural requirements, not the least of which is the plainly worded command that no recorded amendment, and recorded in the land records he means, shall be effective unless it is accompanied by a certification verifying that the requisite majority signed the amendment or a ratification of it in accordance with this code section that they are now trying to change to make it easier for them to change the rules by which they subjected themselves and are created by, Mr. President. Judge Kelsey finishes, in effect, the General Assembly created something entirely new to the law. That is, the right to form private associations having power over land use and ownership, while adding precautions to honor the common law's ancient antipathy towards restrictions on the free use of private property. There is a reason why this is here. There is a reason why it should be here. And there is a reason why it should stay here. You are opening the door to allow a certain few in your neighborhood change your ability to use and enjoy your real estate, your property. That, ladies and gentlemen, because every speech that I have has this in it, is un-American. And I urge this body to vote this down. Let us take carefully consideration. Let the Housing Commission or something else. Let's work on this. Let's not give the few the power to do that which they want to your property. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I rise in support of the bill as amended in spite of the inference that it is un-American. But I guess with all of the homeowners association that have saturated Franklin County, this has become quite an issue down there on it. Mr. President, a couple of thoughts. First of all, I concur that the General Assembly absolutely did create this law. And consequently, because we did create it, we retained the inherent authority to amend it when we find that there's some frailties, or, as I have heard on the floor of the Senate on more than one occasion, perhaps when the courts don't get it exactly right, and we need to provide that legislative guidance to them. And so I would say there's nothing inherently wrong with trying to amend this. First of all, the bill does bring into conformity what most of the homeowners associations have felt has been the law for many years. And this is not something that is insidious to a homeowners when they purchase. The senator was absolutely right. There's mandatory provisions under the law that every homeowner receive a disclosure package, and they have an absolute period of time where they can rescind or back out of the agreement if they don't like it. And one of the things that homeowners association do, and I know that many of us in this body live in communities that have homeowners association. I bet some even in East Beach if I was to look into it. And it is a mini form of government, and the purpose of those homeowners association is not to strip or abrogate the personal property rights that an individual may have, but in fact to protect the property rights of the entire community. And those homeowners associations, of course, governed by a board of directors that are elected very similar in a fashion that those of us on this body are. And I suggest to you that I don't believe there is anything un-American about this. I don't believe that there is anything insidious about it. And I don't believe that, in fact, it is depriving anyone of the property rights that they have, but is trying to bring in conformity and make sure that the homeowners association do have the right to continue to protect those property rights and that which is attendant to it. So I suggest that it is the American way to vote for this bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to join with the gentleman from Franklin on this issue. And I'll tell you, when you buy in these associations, you have restricted covenants. You know what you're going to be subjected to. You know what you can do with your property, with your house, with your lot. And the General Assembly years ago made it hard to change those. And that's the way we want it to be. We want it to be hard to change those restrictions. And so, regardless of what we've all heard about what this bill does, at this point, here's what this bill does. If you actually read line 42, I would tell you that it doesn't call into question the validity of changes that may have been made by HOAs prior to 2017. What this bill would do now is validate every change made by an HOA prior to 2017, even if they broke the law and abrogated your rights as a property owner. You as a property owner have no ability to go back and challenge that to get it fixed. So that's what this bill really does now. We don't do that as a General Assembly as far as I know. We don't go back and say 100 people broke the law over the past 20 years prior to 2017, but we're going to validate what you did and say it's okay without even knowing what you did, what you did to do that. And I'm sorry, victim, if you're victimized, you're just out of luck. That's what this bill does, and I think it's the first time I've really ever seen us take an action like that. I would hope we'd vote no on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm trying to make the bill. Anyone speak on this bill? A question to anyone? Senator Norman, please.
Would the senator from James City County give a question?
With some reluctance.
He's yielding, Senator.
I'm trying to find out, hearing what you're saying, and I'm really against homeowners. Is this bill directed to a certain part of the state? I know we have two states. We have Northern Virginia, which is another state, and we in Virginia. So I'm trying to find out, is this bill just for one part of the state? Is it for everybody?
Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I must confess, I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, Mr. President, I know who put the bill in, and I know certain parts of the state sometimes have a problem, and they're trying to rectify the problem in that part of the state. So I'm trying to find out, Delegate Bullover put the bill in for North Virginia. So I'm trying to find out that if they have a problem in that part of the state, are they trying to fix something in that part of the state and make it mandatory for the whole state?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would say that even though this bill came out of an extraordinarily important jurisdiction, it is not a parochial bill that is trying to fix a particular situation in any one locality. It, in fact, is addressing a statewide situation. It just happened to be that the case that went to the Supreme Court happened to come out of my backyard, and unfortunately, I'm not sure the court got it right.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking briefly to the bill, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, and I hesitate to speak to this because I am far from a big fan of the fourth level of government here, but I do think it's important that we understand exactly what this bill does and kind of how it came to be. This originally, the subsections D and F were introduced, I guess, by my predecessor, who is now serving on the Supreme Court of Virginia, to address those situations where the declaration did not include a way to amend the declaration subsequent. And so that is how we came up with this 2/3 requirement. And it is true that subsection D talks about a 2/3 vote of the owners. And that could be a show of hands. But you can't stop reading the bill there because that's only one part of the process. The rest of the process involves the requisite majority of lot owners executing the amendment. In other words, they all have to sign off on it before it is recorded. This Vardek decision that we keep talking about didn't say that that process wasn't followed. In fact, that was really a case where it was reversed on a technicality, which it truly was, because in the certification that was filed with the land records, it indicated only that it had been approved by the 2/3 majority of lot owners, instead of signed by or executed by. So it was truly just a technicality. I believe that with the floor amendment that the senator from Eastern Fairfax has put on the bill, we're not going to be grandfathering in all of those declarations that were amended in a faulty manner. So there is still a cause of action for them because those declarations are not effective. But I think that as we move forward, it's important that we recognize what this bill actually does.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, be very careful with this bill because homeowners associations can create great mischief. Most people think their homeowners association is a, quote, civic league. Oh, do I need to go to the meeting? Oh, no, it's just a civic league thing. And it's not. These people have great authority over your property. I live in an area with a homeowners association, and I have some experience with dealing with the homeowners association that has not been responsive, that has not been effective, and has not been transparent. Now, I think this bill is well-intentioned, but you want to talk about un-American, there's a homeowners association in Northern Virginia won't let you fly an American flag. Now that, I would tell the gentleman from James City County, is un-American. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeSteffe.
Mr. President, I'm not an attorney, and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. But I'll tell you that for the basic premise of this bill is imagine that you move into a community with a homeowners association. It tells you what you need to do in the documents on how to appeal or change something. It's pretty simple. What the Supreme Court decision did was did away with all of that and says, oh, that's not how you're going to do it. Now you're going to have to throw out the way it said before, and here's what you're going to have to do. You've got to only approve it this way. So basically what it does is it creates confusion in the whole process. When you have confusion like that, what happens? Well, that's where your homeowners association attorneys get involved and make a lot of money with this confusion that we're creating. So if you support this bill, then you should vote for it. If you want to create confusion and make our homeowners association attorneys very wealthy, then you should vote against the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Just speaking briefly in favor of the bill.
The senator has the floor.
I think the bill is clarifying and creates less lawyering. If the homeowners association documents are silent, then 66% of the people in writing can get them. 67%, I'm told, by counsel, can get it amended when it's silent otherwise. If you want to make a change, there's no other way to change those documents. So let's make it easier and clarify this.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, just very briefly, I want to clarify and maybe correct one statement that's been made. This does not override the documents. It doesn't. This only operates when the documents are silent. So if the documents are silent on the issue, the statute is going to be here for the sole purpose of providing an avenue for making an amendment. It does not change the organizational documents.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Somerville.
Speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I would say that not only is this bill un-American, but I noticed that sitting on our desk is not an American flag. It's a Virginia flag. And I think this bill is un-Virginian. Virginia, folks, is one of the places where we protect property rights. And I will tell you, these HOAs, just so you have an understanding of the amount of power they have. I was Googling around for some horror stories. A veteran amputee in Georgia had a lien placed on his home because of a trash can. A North Carolina man fined because he planted pansies in a common area trying to spruce it up. In California, somebody fined $25 a day for putting a divisive Christmas wreath on their front door. In Texas, an HOA, somebody built a white picket fence to protect their 6-year-old autistic son, and when the HOA didn't respond to their request, for 60 days they put it up, then the HOA fined them. In Arizona, a man was fined for putting his pickup truck in his driveway. The court ended up awarding him $187,000 of attorney's fees to vindicate his rights because his HOA had no business to tell him he couldn't put his pickup truck in his driveway. In Texas, an Iraqi serviceman lost his home to foreclosure for not paying $800 in fees while he was flying to Iraq. Louisiana, family sued by their HOA for putting a small sign in their yard honoring their Marine son. While in other homes, they had up signs for professions, schools, motorcycle rides, all kinds of things. But putting up a sign for your son who's a Marine ain't right because it didn't fit their rules. Chesterfield, Virginia, 3,800 homes were ordered to put a $155 identical mailbox on their property. When they all stood up and decided to paint it yellow, they all got fined by their HOA. There's a man that went to jail for not sodding his lawn. I can give you more and more. If anybody wants the whole list, I got a 20-page printout here of HOA horror stories. That's what these things can do if you empower them to do it. Now, point out, this is an $85 billion industry, folks. 1 in 5 Americans now lives in these things. If you want to buy a new house, there's probably about an 80% chance your home is going to be in an HOA. You don't have a choice about whether or not to live in one if you're moving into a new house. If we leave the law the way it is, we make sure that if you want to take somebody's property rights, you have to get somebody's signature on the document before you do it. That overrides their documents if we leave the law the way it is. If we vote red, we will override those documents, and you have to put that signature before it's effective, and I think we ought to do it. People are unhappy with HOAs. I have a survey that was done by the Coalition for Community Housing Policy in the Public Interest. People who live in HOAs, 84% think the biggest problem is lack of transparency, 76% lack of involvement, 76% unhappy about the power to fine, 68% inconsistent applications of rules. These guys are out of control. They're not professionally run. They mess with people, folks. And from my perspective, we shouldn't continue to feed the beast here. We need to vote this bill down. This bill needs to go to the Housing Commission where it can be properly studied because it affects probably millions of homes in Virginia, literally millions. It ought to be properly studied before it comes here to be voted on, and it's not ready for prime time.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria.
Would the senator from James City County yield for a question or two?
He's thinking about it, Senator.
Yes, sir.
I would ask the esteemed senator and the esteemed attorney to help me in understanding the bill. Does this bill, in effect, mean that if a homeowners association in its original documents has a rule against flagpoles, but I wanted to change them and it's silent, that with a 2/3 vote I could allow for the American flag to be flown in that homeowners association?
The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I don't know how to answer that question because there are some underlying constitutional issues about it, and I know that the flag has been waved from everywhere from Franklin County to Fairfax today on that. But the homeowners association spell out the declarations on what is permitted and not permitted, and it would depend, I think, upon the individual homeowners association and what is allowed or not is allowed. I would say in the community that I live in that a homeowner would not have the authority under the existing declarations at the time that I bought to put a flagpole up with any flag on it.
Thank you, Senator.
Briefly, final comment on the bill, sir.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
From reading the bill, I don't think it is full of homeowner horror stories. What it says is that if there's no way to change the documents with a 2/3 vote, you can. I don't think this is about taking power away from people. It's about giving 2/3 of them. If there's no other way, when I bought in a condo, and I have before, if I don't look closely enough between the lines, I assume that it can be changed, but I assume it isn't easily changed. So this allows it merely to be changed with a 2/3 majority. It's a simple bill. It's not a crazy, outrageous encroachment on the people who live in these associations. With that, I hope we'll vote yes.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nobody wishes to speak again. Mr. President, I think it's important that everybody be clear. The law currently states today that you can change this with a 2/3 majority. That's what the law is in Virginia. That's what the Supreme Court case actually said. This is trying to change that. Now, it's been ameliorated somewhat by the gentleman from Fairfax's amendment. But put it a different way to the senator from Alexandria. If you bought in an HOA and you were allowed to fly the American flag in your yard, and they changed that provision and they did it unlawfully, if you vote for this bill, you would never be able to challenge that because this would validate that unlawful amendment. I'd hope you vote red.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1554 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 17.
Ayes 23, noes 17. The bill passes.
House Bill 1399, a bill relating to appointments to the State Board of Elections and local electoral boards, proportion of political party representation. Reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage of House Bill 1399 and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1399 changes the political party representation on the State Board of Elections and it actually gives each party in control in the House and the Senate one person, and it does not change who appoints any of the members. And that's it. So I'd ask that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator from Fauquier yield for a question?
Would the senator yield?
I yield.
She yields, Senator.
Mr. President, I would inquire of the senator: is this the bill for the local electoral boards?
Mr. President, I would respond to the senator by saying this is the bill that actually has to do with the State Board of Elections, not local electoral boards.
Thank you. No further questions. Mr.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Michael, Mr. President, would the lady from Fauquier rise for a question? Yield for a question.
Would the senator yield?
I yield.
She yields, Senator.
Yes, Madam Senator, Mr. President. The question is, if all three parties, if one party has all three positions, I believe the bill provides that the other party gets at least one position. Do we add a fourth, or is one of the three knocked out. That is what I've not understood.
Okay, so the bill says that if all three are the same political party, one member will represent the political party having cast the next highest number of votes for governor at the last election. So it would not add an additional person.
Then, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator.
Would the lady yield for another
Would the
question?
senator yield?
Then
I
who,
yield.
She
I
yields,
yield.
Senator.
Then who loses their ability to put somebody on the committee?
The senator from Fauquier.
I would say that actually nobody loses. It would be that political party that gets to make that determination. But in effect, if you're considering that each party, one from the House and one from the Senate, my sense is that the party would likely agree on a candidate.
Thank you, Senators. The question is, shall House Bill 1399 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 19, noes 20.
Ayes 19, noes 20. The bill does not pass.
House Bill 1409, a bill relating to technical adjustments of House of Delegates in Senate districts, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections, and there is one floor amendment.
The senator from Fauquier County, Senator Vogel.
Mr. President.
We have a floor amendment.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, there have been a number of discussions related to House Bill 1409, specifically some questions related to constitutionality and other issues. And so I would like to request that this bill be re-referred to the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be recommitted to the Committee on Privileges and Elections? All in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is recommitted to Privileges and Elections.
House Bill 1598, a bill relating to voter registration, proof of citizenship required to register to vote in certain elections.
Mr.
Reported
President.
for the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, there has been discussion concerning this bill and constitutional implications that have been raised, and accordingly, I've been asked to ask that this bill be recommitted to the Committee on Courts of Justice to look at those constitutional issues.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1598 be re-referred to the Committee on Privileges and, did you say to Privileges and Elections? Courts, thank you. To courts. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is re-referred.
House Bill 2092, a bill relating to application for public assistance, review of records. The committee amendment has been adopted by the Senate.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass, and let's speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only action the Senate Finance Committee took on this particular provision was to put the financing contingency clause, which you'll see in the amendment that we previously adopted. The underlying intent of the bill is to provide additional review for additional income that someone who is applying for assistance may have, such as winning the lottery. So I would ask that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2092 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 18.
Ayes 22, noes 18. The bill passes.
House Bill 2351, a bill relating to unoccupied property, grass cutting, reported from the Committee on Local Government.
The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move reluctantly that HB 2351 pass, and speaking to that reluctant motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, you may remember this on a Friday. We had a special guest behind me, which we do not have today. This bill allows in Buchanan County the government, not homeowner associations, the government, to force you to cut your grass if it gets too tall, or if you don't, for it to cut the grass if you don't cut it and charge you for it. Now, Mr. President, if I may, in my motion, make a parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, due to the nature of this bill as it relates specifically to Buchanan County, in order for this bill to pass, Mr. President, what is the vote requirement on that?
You need 27 yeas, Senator.
27 yeas.
Yes, sir.
So if you want short grass in Buchanan County, then I'm going to need 27 of you to get me across the finish line. But I will tell you this, Mr. President, that as we close the 2017 General Assembly session, I've had a lot of bills killed over there in the House of Delegates. So it's hard to argue for one of their bills, near to impossible. Why those kids that could have a chance at education don't get their bill passed that I sponsor, but now governments that want to cut your grass get those bills passed over here from the House. It's not fair. Quite frankly, say it with me, it's un-American. So for those reasons, Mr. President, I now move that House Bill 2351 pass. Thank you.
The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman yield for a question.
Would the senator yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
He yields, Senator.
Mr. President, I'd ask the gentleman, I noticed that the reason this bill is before us on the floor of this body is because you cast an affirmative vote for it in the committee from which it sprung. But I want to ask the gentleman, how is it more American that a local government imposes upon your personal property rights what you have to do? What if I have sheep or goats or cows and I really want my grass to be high so that they can have that food to forage throughout the winter?
Mr. President, I'd answer my friend, the gentleman next door, by saying this. Number one, when I looked down and I saw that it had Stanley as a yay vote in my committee, to quote Charles Barkley after he wrote an autobiography, I've been misquoted. I come from a long line of Republican chairmen of local government who do not like grass-cutting bills. And so, therefore, I join in your position that if you want to keep your grass long, keep your grass long. But I would remind the gentleman that if he keeps saying grass and high too much, he may sound like the senator from James City on the bill for decriminalization.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Hanover.
Mr. President, speaking to the senator's statement, I would say that I'm against grass that would make you high and against this bill. And would ask that you vote red for both.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2351 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 18.
Ayes 21, noes 18. The grass can grow.
House Bill 1402, a bill relating to governing boards of public institutions of higher education, leadership, residency, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, with the substitute on this bill, it is a bill that speaks to the rector and vice rector of a public institution of higher education and their residence requirement. On the floor of the Senate, we amended the bill that came through the Senate that was Senator from Eastern Fairfax's bill that would state that either or would have to be Virginia residents. That we ended up looking at and maybe would not allow someone who was formerly a vice rector to become a rector. This fixes that problem. Mr. President, I hope we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1402 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes none.
Ayes 30, noes 9. The bill passes.
House Bill 1490, a bill relating to school board members who engage in war service or are called to active duty in the armed forces of the United States, appointment of acting school board members. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, at the request of a member, I'd like for House Bill 1490 to go by for the day.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, House Bill 1490 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1514, a bill relating to the reporting of disabilities of drivers, reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass and speaking that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill you've seen before in the form of Senate Bill 1024, Senator Donovan's bill. Mr. President, this is a bill that provides that certain doctors and physician assistants and physical therapies will have the ability to report information to the DMV in the case of these particular disabilities. Mr. President, we have had the bill earlier. This bill now is identical, and I hope that we would agree to the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1514 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The bill passes.
House Bill 1546, a bill relating to juror information confidentiality, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendments.
Senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to. The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. And speaking of this bill really doesn't do as much as most people had initially thought this bill did. It is intended to address a situation in which jurors' personal information is made available to criminal defendants. And there have been a number of incidents in which there have been threats that have been made by criminal defendants following their convictions against persons who have served on juries. What this does is it prevents the disclosure of this personal information or limits the disclosure of this personal information except upon showing of good cause following their being impaneled as a juror. So it doesn't prevent the court from making available to counsel, who can certainly go through with his client the list of potential jurors prior to a jury being impaneled. It's an important part of preparation and handling the trial. It doesn't impair that, and Mr. President, it simply limits the disclosure after the fact, and it really arose from a case in the northern Shenandoah Valley outside of my district, in the district of the senator from Fauquier, in which a criminal defendant was prosecuted and tried for a capital murder case, and afterwards asked for a copy of his file, and got the file, and the lawyer left in the personal information, identifying information of the persons who actually were impaneled and served on the jury. So the criminal defendant proceeded to send letters out to each of the individual members of the jury, threatening to burn down their houses, and heck, what's an extra few years tacked on to a life sentence? So this would address that and would prevent those disclosures under those circumstances.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Will the gentleman from Rockingham yield for a question?
Would the senator from Rockingham yield? He yields, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry I wasn't on the committee and I didn't hear the discussion. I haven't had a chance to raise this with you. I had a couple of questions about this. So normally when I get a jury list in the clerk, it has the person's information, where they live, and it also has their employer, what they do for a living, and their spouse's employer, and whether they're a property owner. Does this bill in any way limit counsel's ability to get that kind of information so they can assess whether a juror has a conflict or ought to be questioned about that?
Senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I would direct the senator's attention to the language in sections A and B of the statute, which are really the dispositive provisions to answer that. This solely addresses personal information of a juror who has been impaneled. has been impaneled. So if that information is important to you, which I would suggest it should be for purposes of preparation for trial and in selecting a jury, it does not prevent the disclosure and use of that information for those purposes, but only prevents your sharing that or the court sharing that with the criminal defendant, except upon the conditions set forth in this statute after that person has been impaneled as a juror in a criminal case.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax.
Will the gentleman yield for additional question?
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
And I appreciate that answer. That takes care of my concern with regard to that issue. Secondary issue I have, though, is that, often what happened in a jury room, specifically whether a decision was unanimous or whether a jury may have been improperly influenced or something inappropriate might have happened in a jury room, becomes important in subsequent appeals of a case, particularly in a lot of these death penalty cases. What may or may not have happened with the jury is important. And so these innocent project people and stuff often want to go and interview jurors to ask them to find out if there was anything inappropriate that occurred. Would this provision sort of limit the access by third parties to that information so they could talk to jurors to assess whether or not everything was above board in that deliberation?
The senator from Rockingham.
I would submit that it does not limit the ability of a court to make those disclosures. If you look in paragraph A, towards the end, it says an order regulating the disclosure of information may be modified, and the names and home addresses of the jurors in a criminal case may be disseminated to a person having a legitimate interest or need for the information, with restrictions upon its use and further dissemination as may be deemed appropriate for the court. So I would submit that the Innocence Project or post-trial counsel would clearly qualify as individuals having a legitimate interest in that information.
Thank you, Senator.
Will the gentleman yield for additional question?
Would the gentleman yield for an additional? He yields, Senator.
And while I recognize it gives the court discretion, it doesn't mandate that, which worries me a little bit. But another question I had is often the press would like to contact jurors to find out why they decided what they did or, what the discussion was, that kind of thing. Is it accurate to say that this would also limit the press's ability to find out information about jurors so they can talk to them about their decision?
The senator from Rockingham.
I would respectfully submit that that same discretion is vested in the court with respect to that as well. And I would think that the press would certainly, prior to impanelment, have access to the jury panel list, and my guess is that even after trial they can get the list of all of the members of the panel from which the jurors were selected. It may require a little bit more shoe leather, but that's what these outstanding members of the media are paid for.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thank the gentleman.
Thank you. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm not crazy about this bill, and I'm trying to put my finger on why that is. But one of the things that I notice, and I understand that it's just jurors that have been impaneled, so theoretically it doesn't restrict your right to obtain information in voir dire. But what it does is it treats differently pro se defendants versus those defendants that have counsel. Because if you're a pro se defendant, you're entitled to all information. You have to be treated just the same as if you're a member of the bar, and so they would have access to the information. But if you are represented by an attorney, then the attorney has to take this information and essentially view it in camera where he can't share it with his client. And there's already rules right now, if you're an attorney, that you can't give information to your client or you shouldn't do anything that would encourage them to commit a crime. But typically, in a case where you have a jury, you're going to share information with your client. So if you happen to know that, one of the jurors works at a certain place or their spouse works at a certain place, that's something you're going to discuss with your client when you come to and formulate a strategy for the case. And I think by passing this bill, I don't quite know why we're doing this, because we already have a system that, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't resulted in anybody's harm. I think, frankly, we're diminishing somebody's right to confrontation and their right to a jury trial. Again, if we're going to treat a pro se defendant differently than someone who's represented by counsel. So I understand that criminal defendants might do something stupid, and they might make threats against jurors, but you know what? They're already in a penitentiary at that point. Okay, so there's probably, and by the way, they could find the judge and the prosecutor just by looking in the phone book, if one still existed, of course. So I think this bill, it may be seeking to solve a problem, but I think it limits your ability to counsel, and frankly, it's not that great an idea.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Yeah, don't phone books anymore.
Thank you, Mr. President, and ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. This bill does a whole lot of things that just are utter nonsense, and I'll tell you why. Why? This bill, thank you. This bill creates a myth. It creates some type of a myth that somehow these people don't have that information. Because if the trial lawyer was doing their job in the first place, they'd have discussed every bit of it with them as the jury was being impaneled. Every bit of that information would have been given to your client, and I suggest to you that if it isn't given to them, you're committing malpractice. You're not letting them know who's on that jury. You're not letting them know how that person might have a bias or prejudice. You're not going over all those things with them that are absolutely critically necessary for you to represent individuals in a jury trial. So this bill says, well, never mind that the horse has already gotten out of the barn, that you did your job and you did what you were supposed to do. But now if you turn around or somebody says that you gave it to them after the jury was impaneled, somebody's in a lot of trouble. That's what it says. That's what this bill stands for. And I urge all of you to vote this bill down. It's a bad bill.
All right. Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this is not a solution in search of a problem. This is a bill that is in response to a specific problem. If you think that it is not traumatic to members of a jury to get a letter from somebody you have just sentenced for capital murder saying that they have contacts and they are going to have your house burned to the ground, you're wrong. It is a minimum that we can do to pass this bill. This bill does not, contrary to my friend from Russell County's assertions, it does not impair your ability to counsel with your client. It deals solely with the situation in which that criminal defendant who has been sentenced writes to the court and says, send me the list of all the people who served on my jury together with their addresses and personal information. I want to know whether they're married. I want to know where they work. I want to know where they live. Under this bill, that clerk is not going to be able to do that. Under the current law, the clerk probably has an absolute duty to do that. This is a modicum of protection that we are providing to people who step up and provide that important community service and public service by agreeing to serve on our criminal juries. We need to provide them with that protection.
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Would the senator yield? He yields.
I would ask the gentleman, what if the defendant, or in this case the convict, is on death row or wherever he is, and he writes a letter to his counsel and says, send me from your file the notes on the jury panel, which is my property under our attorney-client relationship. Send me the notes to your file so I can study that. Would that be not a violation of the statute?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I would say absolutely it's a violation of the statute, and in order to send it, you would have to go to the court and say there is good cause for providing this. If it's simply because my client wants to harass, threaten, or intimidate those jurors, then the court would be well advised and well grounded in denying a finding of good cause. However, if there is a legitimate reason and good cause, they are absolutely permitted to exercise that discretion and allow you the ability to share that list with your client.
Further question, Mr. Chair.
Would the senator yield for an additional question? Senator,
yes.
He yields, Senator.
If the Innocence Project or John Grisham or the New York Times or whomever decides to take an interest in my case because of possible juror bias or because of some other possible issue, and they'd like to see the file, and I'd like them to help me because I'm on death row. I got no other options. Are they not allowed to look at? Am I not allowed to give them that information?
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, as I explained to the senator from Southern Fairfax, the answer to that is absolutely. They can get that. This statute provides a means for a person having a legitimate interest or need for the information to access that information. And I absolutely submit that somebody like the Innocence Project or Capital Defense clinical program at any one of our law schools would be an entity with a legitimate interest in that information.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senators. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, speaking against this bill, what this bill does is unduly and unnecessarily restrict the rights of litigants in a criminal case to information that's important to defending the case and maybe even on appeal with regard to the jury. Already in the law, it states the court may, upon motion of either party or the court's own motion, and for good cause shown, issue an order regulating the disclosure of personal information of jurors, except to the attorney. The court can already do this. It's unnecessary to have this, but in addition, it unduly restricts the rights of, as has already been pointed out, of litigants to have information which is necessary. Thank you. I hope you would vote no, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1546 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.
House Bill
Mr. President.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Returning to page 43 of the calendar, sir, having voted on the prevailing side by which Senate Bill 1402 passed, I would ask that we reconsider that vote, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1402 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, having previously been explained, this is the bill related to directors and vice directors. I would move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1402 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 26, noes 14.
Ayes 26, noes 14. The bill passes.
House Bill 1586, a bill relating to court-ordered custody and visitation arrangements, transmission of order to child's school. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendments.
Senator.
Mr. President.
Yes, the junior senator from Richmond City.
With apologies to the chairman of the Courts Committee, could House Bill 1586 go by for the day, please?
Without objection, House Bill 1586 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1606, a bill relating to the use of handheld personal communication devices in highway work zones. Reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having heard this bill in committee and many questions coming up about the issue of a handheld device solely in a work zone, I'm going to ask that this be referred to courts. Back to courts.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1606 be re-referred to courts? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is re-referred to the Committee on Courts.
House Bill 1654, a bill relating to examining and approving a statement in lieu of the settlement of accounts fee for Commissioner of Accounts. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to this bill, Mr. President, most of the fees for commissioners of account are set forth in the rules of the court, and the Supreme Court has a schedule of fees that are revisited from time to time. And in a periodic cleanup, first time I think since 1993, it was found that this statement in lieu of settlements, it's got a fee that is in the code that really belongs in the schedule of fees that the court promulgates from time to time. This simply removes it from the code, and it makes it clear that this is goes with the remainder of the Commissioner of Accounts schedule that is established by the Supreme Court of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1654 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 4, Rule 36-2.
Ayes 33, noes 4, Rule 36-2. The bill passes.
House Bill 1664, a bill relating to the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, collection and publication of wage data, and the Virginia Longitudinal Data System. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking of the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, we're already collecting this data. I know that there's been some questions about whether this is new data in general. We are collecting this data, and this gives a proper way for that reporting to take place. I hope that we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1664 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 1692, a bill relating to effect of divorce proceedings, transfer of matters to Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court, concurrent jurisdiction. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendment.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I yield to the senior senator from, never mind. Mr. President, I move that the adoption of the committee amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. Mr. President, this bill simply makes it clear that matters that have been referred from the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court to the Circuit Court, for example, child support or spousal support, once they're there, both the Circuit Court and the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court have concurrent jurisdiction, and with the amendment that we adopted, it makes it clear that if the parties are represented by counsel and they agree that the Circuit Court can exercise that concurrent jurisdiction over matters that have been there and have been referred back.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1692 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 1829, a bill relating to teacher licensure, certification, or training in emergency first aid, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the use of automated external defibrillators, hands-on practice. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move the bill passes. Speaking of the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill takes us from having a teacher view a movie or a video about this subject and has them do hands-on training. Mr. President, I did vote against the bill in committee, and this one and another bill. I think that our General Assembly needs to look at the number of health care-related items we're asking teachers to do. It's nothing short of extraordinary what we're requiring to do. So, Mr. President, I've had further developed thoughts on this since committee, and I'm going to vote for the bill, but I do think the subject matter we certainly need to look at and find a way to get them away from being healthcare professionals while being teachers.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1829 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes.
House Bill 1960, a bill relating to tow truck drivers and towing and recovery operators, requirements, civil penalties. Reported from the Committee on Transportation with amendment.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Move the committee amendments.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Grayson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that we pass House Bill 1960. And just a little bit of an explanation. There was a very heated debate and very long debate on this floor on that side the last time that this bill came up. And this is dealing with tow truck drivers and creating the civil penalty of $150 to be paid into the literary fund if any tow truck driver or towing recovery operator is convicted of improperly towing in Planning District 8. This also takes away the second signature that is currently in place. And this bill is supported by several organizations as a good economic bill, and it's supported by the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Retail Merchants Association, Apartment and Office Building Association, Virginia Restaurant and Lodging Travel Association, Virginia Petroleum Convenience Store Marketers Association, Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, Prince William Chamber of Commerce, Lynchburg Retail Merchants Association, Northern Virginia Towing Coalition, Virginia Beach Towing Association, Major Incident Heavy Recovery Operations Association. So, Mr. President, there are several organizations that have been looking at this bill in Planning District 8 and are in agreement that this would be a good bill for that region. And as far as the second signature, the actual bill does not prohibit that if the locality requires it. So I would ask that we consider what this towing bill and recovery bill does, and that we pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, the question is, shall House Bill 1960 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. The senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 31, noes 9.
Ayes 31, noes 9. The bill passes.
House Bill 2101, a bill relating to health care providers' data collection, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask that that bill go by for the day. The senator from Southern Fairfax and senator from Henrico are working on an additional amendment that we should have tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, House Bill 2101 will go by for the day.
House Bill 2119, a bill relating to the practice of laser hair removal, reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass and speak in the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this sets up in 54.1 the practice of laser hair removal and defines who may do such acts. Mr. President, I hope we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2119 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 25, noes 15.
Ayes 25, noes 15. The bill passes.
House Bill 2174, a bill relating to school boards, pupil-teacher ratios, class size limits, public report, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. Mr. President, I move that the bill passes. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is a bill that requires that information regarding middle school and high school student-teacher ratio be reported. Before we were doing that mostly in the elementary school. I know that there were some that voted against the bill because of the concern about over-reporting, but I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2174 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The bill passes.
House Bill 2191, a bill relating to school boards' procedures, sexually explicit instructional materials, or related academic activities. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move the bill passes. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is a bill that, especially on lines 27 through 29, probably needs to be reviewed. This bill indicates that annually parents can be notified of instructional material that meet this definition, and that replacement instructional material will be made available. I think what is key to the amendments as this has worked its way through the legislature is the definition has changed. The new definition means content that involves any criminal sexual assault as defined as a felony, Mr. President. So it has been narrowed a good bit in this legislature. I hope that we pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2191 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 18.
Ayes 22, noes 18. The bill passes.
House Bill 2218, a bill relating to public charter school applications and charter agreements reviewed by the Board of Education. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I know we've had some charter school bills this year. This bill permits the Board of Education to communicate any board's finding related to the rationale for which the local school board had denied the charter for the public charter schools or a revocation or failure to renew a charter school. Mr. President, this bill just provides the information and the detail, and I hope that we will pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2218 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 20, noes 20.
Ayes 20, noes 20. The chair votes no. The bill does not pass.
House Bill 2289, a bill relating to award of life insurance upon divorce or dissolution of marriage. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I move the substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. And speaking of the bill, Mr. President, this bill is a recommendation of the Family Law Coalition of the Virginia Bar Association and Boyd Graves Conference. What this does is it clarifies the authority of circuit court in ordering for spousal support and maintenance. It clarifies that the court has the authority under certain circumstances to order a spouse to maintain already existing life insurance. It clarifies that there has to be an insurable interest. It also gives the court the discretion to say no. And if circumstances change, it allows the party who is ordered to maintain that insurance to petition the court to discontinue it. It automatically is discontinued in the event that a job change or some insurance policy expires on its own terms. So with that, Mr. President, it would seem to me this is a great idea and the bill ought to pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2289 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Mr. President. Right here. Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side of where we...
Senator, I'll come back to you. Let's get this vote first.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The bill passes. The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
I apologize, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side where we did not pass House Bill 2218, I ask that we reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 2218 failed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. Having previously been explained, this is the bill that provides information about the reason why a charter is rejected.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2218 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.
House Bill 2306, a bill relating to the Arlington County School Board maximum salary of members, reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill passes. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, Arlington County has an odd item that indicates that they have been in the past capped at $25,000 in regards to their school board members. This bill seeks to remove that cap, and I move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2306 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 5.
Ayes 35, noes 5. The bill passes.
House Bill 2352, a bill relating to teacher licensure by reciprocity professional teachers assessments, reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. And speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill exempts from any professional teacher assessment requirement an individual who has obtained a valid out-of-state license with full credentials, and as long as they have no deficiencies in that are enforced at the time that Virginia receives the license. Mr. President, this bill also requires the Department of Education to analyze the current requirements for teacher licensings and make sure that those states have a reciprocal relationship with the Commonwealth of Virginia. There's also a requirement that the House Education Committee and the Senate Education and Health Committee receive a report on those items as well. I hope we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2352 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The bill passes.
House Bill 2362, a bill relating to tow truck drivers' temporary registration with the Department of Criminal Justice Services, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the bill pass. Speaking of the bill, this bill would allow the temporary license to be issued for a tow truck driver. Waiting right now, the process, the way it goes with trying to get the background checks and everything, the delay that takes place, it would allow that license to take effect whenever they apply for it and speed the process up, and I'd move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2362 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? All the senators voted. Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. The bill passes.
House Bill 2395, a bill relating to public schools reading specialist, dyslexia advisor, reported from the Committee on Education and Health with a substitute.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Bedford.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill is similar to the senior senator from Loudoun's bill that dealt with dyslexia and advisors in positions, reading specialists and psychologists in the school systems. We did add the amendment that added the psychologists to the group, and I understand that the House of Delegates is considering an item that's similar. I would hope that we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2395 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 2423, a bill relating to golf carts on public highways exceptions, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Mr. President, I would move that the bill pass. Not that I voted for it, but because the committee did ask for the bill to pass. This would add to the list of localities throughout Virginia that allows golf carts to operate on its public highway. Jarrett to that list of locations, and we heard testimony in the committee from the mayor in that town asking that this bill, this privilege be granted to the town of Jarrett, and the committee voted 11-2. I was one of the two that didn't feel it was a good idea, but I would ask that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2423 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, no 6.
Ayes 34, no 6. The bill passes.
House Bill 2453, a bill relating to flashing amber lights amateur radio operators, reported from the Committee on Transportation.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Move that the bill pass, Mr. President, and speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
This is a bill in which adds to the long list of flashing lights to be approved on vehicles. This is adding amateur radio operators the ability to have flashing amber lights for when they're pulled over on the side of the road. So now this long laundry list of amber lights are available to everyone except for legislators, I believe, today. I don't know who is exempt from it, but I would say that the committee chose to pass the bill, and as you can see, I was one of the no votes, and since the committee's will, I'd ask the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2453 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 18.
Ayes 22, noes 18. The bill passes.
House Bill 2477, a bill to require the Department of Health to take steps to begin eliminating site evaluation and design services for on-site sewage systems and private wells provided by the department. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health.
The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the bill does direct the Department of Health to begin to eliminate their site evaluation and design services for online sewages, and the reason for that is that those services now can and are provided by private providers. I would hope we would pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2477 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 6.
Ayes 33, noes 6. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move all of the House bills on the second reading on both the uncontested and regular calendar, which includes all House bills on pages 51 through 67, including House Bill 1467 through House Bill 2342. The rules of the Senate be suspended and that the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 51 through 67, House Bill 1467 through House Bill 2342, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. The senator from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move all the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading go by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Mr. President,
the senator from James.
Returning on page 51 to House Bill 2477, having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed that bill, I would ask we reconsider that vote, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 2477 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Having previously been explained, this bill, as you recall, is the one that gets the department out of activity that we now have private activity in.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2477 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 6.
Ayes 34, noes 6. The bill passes. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, returning to page 45 of the calendar, House Bill 1606, by which we referred that bill back to the Courts Committee on a voice vote. I'd move that we reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1606 was re-referred to courts be reconsidered?
Speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just trying to resuscitate this bill from my classmate from the class of 2009. I would just ask that we could just reconsider this so we could take it by for the day to give folks a chance to have another discussion about it before we do what I think the majority wants to do to it. And I would at least ask for that courtesy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1606 was re-referred be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion?
Mr. President.
The senator from Rockingham.
This go by temporarily.
Without objection, House Bill 1606 will go by temporarily.
Regular calendar, House Joint Resolutions on third reading. House Joint Resolution 545, proposing an amendment to Section 14 of Article 4 of the Constitution of Virginia relating to powers of the General Assembly, suspension or nullification of administrative rule or regulation. Reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections with a substitute.
The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that HJR 545 pass, and speaking to that motion.
If you could move the substitute first.
Oh, sorry. Mr. President, I move that we adopt the substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Fauquier.
Now, Mr. President, that we've adopted the substitute, I move passage of the resolution and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
This bill is nearly identical to a bill that we debated at some length here on the Senate floor. This has to do with the discussion regarding regulatory rollback. And as the delegate who introduced this resolution so aptly articulated this notion that the administrative rules, the regulatory environment has reached a place where we believe that having the legislature have some opportunity to evaluate and exercise some review over the intent of some of the legislation and thus afterwards the rulemakings that have ensued would be an important way to rebalance the power. And so this bill differs only slightly in that it has some enabling language that by general rule would allow this legislative body to establish a commission that could do some review in the mid-year when the legislature is not in session. So with that, I ask that the resolution pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson. Would the senator from Fauquier yield? She yields, Senator.
Gentlelady referenced this idea about the legislature being able to have review over bureaucratic provisions. Don't we already have that review by virtue of the fact we could change the state code?
The senator from Fauquier.
Yes, Mr. President, I would respond to the senator by saying, yes, we absolutely do. And that was something that I raised in the last debate when several of our colleagues took to the floor and said that this was, in fact, a radical departure. And I pointed that out, that this is something that the legislature already can do. But in the instance of a constituent coming to me and saying this regulation is either arcane, it's now frustrating its own initial intent, absent the ability to actually work through that law or to sue and have something promulgated, which is obviously a great expense to that person, I would argue that this makes sense in the sense that without having to go through the ordinary process of having a legislator initiated as a bill, you could actually come back during session and do that review.
Thank
so
you,
it's slightly different than just coming in and killing something.
The senator from Fairfax City.
Mr.
Did Senator yield for an additional question? Senator, you yield for an additional question?
Yes, I yield.
Thank you. She yields, Senator.
Lady, is it her anticipation that when we learn about these bureaucratic regulations that we ostensibly don't like, that we would come back for a special session to address it, or we address it during an ordinary session, or we have some super group of lawmakers that will vote it up or vote it down? I mean, how are we going to address it other than just through our usual bills?
Mr. President, I would say that the amendment clearly contemplates that it would be acted on during our regular legislative session. And the distinction here, and why I can tell you that with great confidence, is that in the additional language in this resolution, it allows for the legislature, should the legislature so determine, to pass as an act of general law the ability to set up some interim body that might, in the intervening time, do such an evaluation. But as the resolution stands now, it contemplates that we, as a legislature, might be able to come back as democratically elected individuals and make a judgment, make an act on a regulation.
Further question, Mr. President?
I yield.
She yields, Senator.
Lady, is there something to this amendment that we're trying to somehow cut the third floor or the governor's office out of the equation? And isn't that a bit presumptuous? Perhaps if the senior senator from Virginia Beach is going to be our next governor, shouldn't we allow him to weigh in on some of these issues?
The senator from Fauquier. Excuse me, Senator, if you all could take your sidebar. Senator, it's very distracting to the senator speaking. Please.
Mr. President, I would argue that it is just the opposite, that in this case, no one is trying to undercut the third floor in any way, violate what would always be the discretion of the executive, and that is that policy to promulgate regulations, to appoint those who would make those regulations. However, what I think most Virginians would tell you, as you travel around the Commonwealth of Virginia and you talk to folks in the business community, they will tell you that it is, in fact, the regulatory environment that is killing them. And that is the number one constituent complaint that I have. And my ability to impact that is rather restricted, because I don't work in the executive branch and I don't have the ability just to pick up the phone and, have some major impact. I will tell you, though, that my experience has always been that working with governors' offices, the executive branch of either party, they have been very solicitous, and they have made many, many attempts to help with constituent issues that deal with regulations. They've made many, many attempts to work with me to help my constituents, but that doesn't get to the underlying issue, and that is that we have seen a major shift from those of us who are elected representatives who have the ability to translate directly what it is that those who elected us wish for, that's been very much abdicated in ways that we have just seen slowly absorbed by the executive branch, who has taken over through the administrative process what many people would argue is something that's better left to the legislature. So once they go too far, I would argue that it is certainly within the rights of the legislature, without violating the balance of power, to come in and do what we would ordinarily do if we passed a new law. This delegates' resolution would simply say that we'd be able to come back in and act on a regulation directly.
The senator from Fairfax City.
The measure.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, one of the things I learned in legislative kindergarten was that there's 3 branches of government. Judicial branch, there's an executive branch, and there's a legislative branch. And as the gentleman from James City County accurately noted, we are a part-time body. There's somebody who runs for governor that will actually govern through the executive branch. And one of the great things that they can do when they run for that office is they say, you know what, I'm going to relax restrictions, or I'm going to ramp up restrictions, or I'm going to crack down on polluters, or I'm going to lighten up on. They can campaign on that issue. That can be their issue. And the governor, the voters can choose, and that governor will then take his seat or her seat up on the 3rd floor, and they can govern according to those principles. And for those 4 years, and I'm a one-term guy, for those 4 years, they will control the executive branch. We, meanwhile, come back as part-timers. We decide how the money is spent. We decide what state laws are changed. We decide what judges are elected. We decide who gets certain appointments. That's what we do. We don't get involved with government regulations, okay? Because most of us are too darn busy to do it. And we don't have the expertise, and quite frankly, we're here to make laws, not make regulations. I actually had this argument right next door in the 4th Circuit a couple years ago. I was asked a question, what's the difference between a law and a regulation? I said a law is something that's passed by a democratically elected assembly. A regulation is something that's enacted by a bureaucracy. And a judge looked at me and said, wow, that's brilliant. I said, I just thought of it. I don't know, I guess. But the bottom line is we make laws. We don't make regulations. Regulations are made by the executive branch, and the executive branch is also elected. And we have to be cognizant of that. So I don't know what the purpose of this amendment is, and quite frankly, I think we've seen in the last election that sometimes we throw things on the old ballot, and they don't necessarily go up and down the way we think they will. I think this is a very confusing amendment. I think it's better off to, cut it off at this point. Because let's not get involved in regulations. Lord knows we have enough time just making laws. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, will the gentlelady from Fauquier rise for a question?
Would the senator from Fauquier yield?
I'm happy to.
She yields, Senator.
Mr. President, did I hear the gentlelady say that this measure was different, a little different than the one we passed before crossover?
The senator from Fauquier.
Yes, Mr. President, I would respond by saying it is, and the major distinction is that the language of this resolution authorizes the General Assembly, through passage of a general law, to establish a commission that would allow for, during the intervening time between legislative sessions, to evaluate and consider regulations. That would be something that obviously would have to be passed by this General Assembly. So absent a passage of law, it's otherwise identical to the other resolution that passed this body.
The senator from Roanoke City.
Would the gentlelady yield for another question?
Would the senator, she yields, Senator.
I yield.
Can you give me an example of a regulation you'd like to see overturned by both houses without the governor's involvement, or in the interim by commission?
The senator from Fauquier.
Mr. President, I can think of a long litany of things that constituents have brought to me, but I knew I was going to get that question, and the answer is no. I would prefer not to recite all those today.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, speaking to this measure,
the senator has the floor.
This is truly undemocratic. We elect laws, both the House and the Senate and the governor. This is taking the governor out of the process. If we don't like, as we said earlier, if we don't particularly like a regulation, we do have elections for governor every 4 years, and we get elected every 4 years, the House every 2 years. There are two methods, as we mentioned previously, and one is take it to the courts to say it's ultra-virus, beyond the scope, and otherwise illegal, or otherwise, or simply we can pass a bill and overturn it. It happens all the time, Mr. President. This is undemocratic. We ought to vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know you're a little bit disappointed from the senator from Fairfax City rousing endorsement of me. I'm going to make sure he gets a yard sign and bumper sticker before he leaves on Saturday. But I'll rise to speak in favor of this resolution. And I think it's important because we cede a tremendous amount of law writing ability over to the regulators when we pass a law here, and then we turn it over to them to write the regulations. Without a review, without a look-see, without a doing that, we have no idea whether the intent of the law that we passed is in fact being carried out by the regulations. And so I think we have a responsibility to review those and responsibility to look at them to make sure that that is the intent of the law we passed. I think we see overreach after overreach coming out of Washington in terms of what you talked to your congressman and said, you voted for that. I didn't vote for that. That's what the regulations said. So I think it's altogether appropriate, and I hope we'd support this resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Western Fairfax County, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had the privilege of working at the Department of Juvenile Justice for several years, and we were in the constant process of reviewing regulations. Some we would add, many we would take away. But the idea here was that it was science and not somehow the popularity of a regulation that determined what we were going to do with it. We spent many months looking at each thing, hearing from people in the community as to how this would impact them. So really what we're doing here, if we pass this, is we're kind of pulling away from science and informed decisions by being advised by professionals and experts in an area, and putting it into the political realm where it's, well, if it's not popular with my constituents, heck, I'm going to vote to get rid of it. This is a bad way to go, and I urge you to vote against this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Bath County, Senator Deeds.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, each one of us represents about 200,000 people, and if the rest of the members of this body are like me, you hear from constituents nearly every week who are concerned about one regulation or another. As legislators, we meet for a few days every year, part-time legislators, and sometimes the legislation we introduce is driven by the things we hear from our constituents about those regulations. This legislation, in my view, is an effort to make this legislature more than a part-time legislature, to make it a full-time legislature, because if we are going to micromanage every agency of government, we are not going to get it done in a 60-day session. Now, the change that comes over from the House of Delegates says we can indeed appoint a 3 or 4 member commission to suspend regulations in the interim. And I would suggest to you that that is not only anti-government, it's anti-democratic. So this legislation is unnecessary. It's not in the tradition of Virginia government, and I would hope that we would not pass it.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Mr. President, speak to the resolution.
Senator has the floor.
I would like to associate myself with the senator from Fauquier and the senior senator from Virginia Beach, and I think that there's a really important concept here. When regulations are written, having served on a board that wrote regulations, they go to the Secretariat, and the governor and the administrative branch has the opportunity to review those regulations before they are promulgated and signed. We do not. We have a responsibility when we create law to ensure that there are not a lot of unintended consequences. And I think that having checks and balances between both the legislature and the administrative, you know, we are looking, this committee may look at how we do it. We have conferences now between the House and the Senate to resolve that the language in our laws that we are passing here are consistent with our intent and agreed upon. And I think we ought to be having the same diligence, and I believe that our constituents expect us to have that diligence when it comes to the regulations that affect their lives.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the resolution.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to speak on this, but the entire conversation has been solely in the context of what the governor's role versus the General Assembly's role is. But I would remind the body that this resolution would allow the General Assembly to suspend or nullify any administrative regulation or rule, including those from independent agencies such as the State Corporation Commission, the Workers' Comp Commission, which the Constitution has delegated to the State Corporation Commission regulation of public utilities and many other entities because they are the experts. We are not. And I can tell you there is nothing more politically charged and complicated than the siting of a transmission line or electric utility regulation. And I'm uncomfortable with us saying we're going to have a handful of legislators who are now going to, I mean, the regulatory process at the State Corporation Commission can take 18 months at a minimum. And sometimes they're trying to repeal regulations that were created 100 years ago, but no longer fit technology today. So now we're going to say, on top of that 18 months, let's say that order comes out in March or April or May. On top of that, now we got to wait for another legislative session for non-experts to review what the experts at the State Corporations Commission have decided to do and insert politics into what is already a pretty political process, which is why we delegated it to the experts to handle to begin with. And for that reason, I can't vote for this resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking on the bill, before I get to the point I really wanted to make, no, we really don't want any politics to get involved in regulations. Thank you, the State Board of Health. Having said that, Mr. President, just a commonsensical observation on this. This is the first year of a 2-year cycle that has to take place on the constitutional amendment. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, it is remarkable how an intervening election and a next session of the General Assembly can change the enlightenment of legislators that vote in favor of a constitutional amendment on year one.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall HJR 545 be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The resolution is agreed to.
House Joint Resolution 693, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Virginia by adding in Article 10 a section numbered 7-B relating to special funds for transportation purposes.
Mr. President.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you. With my apologies to the body, may we pass this by for the day?
Without objection, HJR 693 will go by for the day. If we could return to page 45 of the calendar. House Bill 1606, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, having been reminded of when I opened my mouth on the prior motion, I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the motion will be withdrawn.
Mr. President.
The senator from Southern Fairfax County.
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side by which we sent House Bill 1606 on page 45 back to committee, I ask that that vote be reconsidered.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1606 was re-referred be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion to re-refer the bill to courts and to discuss further the carve-out of this section, and hope that we would not ask for this bill to go by for the day.
Right, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
This is a substitute motion. The bill go by for the day.
Mr. President.
The senator from Rockingham.
I move the previous question.
The previous question is, shall the bill be re-referred to which committee? Courts. All in favor of that motion will record
Mr. President?
Yes, the senator from James City County.
Inquiry, doesn't the previous question have to be ordered, sir?
Yes, sir, that's what, yes, sir, you're correct. The Senate will stand at order. The primary motion is, shall the bill be re-referred? The substitute motion is, shall it be passed by? The question is, shall the previous question be ordered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The previous question has been ordered. The motion on the floor is, shall the bill be re-referred to courts? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 24, noes 16.
Ayes 24, noes 16. The bill is re-referred to courts. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, inquiry of the clerk. Does that mercifully conclude the calendar?
Thank goodness.
Is there any other business? The senator from... You want to... Yes, the senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor for a point of personal privilege.
Mr. President, this is Black History Month, but we've been so busy we haven't had an opportunity to give very many speeches this year. But I'd like to give a speech about Mary Elizabeth Bowser. Mary Elizabeth Bowser was born into slavery around 1839 and was owned by John Van Lew, a wealthy hardware merchant in Richmond. There are accounts which indicate that after John Van Lew's death, his wife and daughter bought members of the slave family from other slaveholders and set them free. After the Van Lew woman freed Mary Elizabeth Bowser, she continued to work as a paid servant following her marriage to William Bowser, a free man just before the start of the American Civil War. John Van Lew's daughter, Elizabeth, was a staunch abolitionist and loyal to the Union. Taking advantage of her father's prominence and wealth in Richmond, Elizabeth Van Lew, or Crazy Bet as she was known, established an elaborate system of spying on the Confederates, in the capital of which she recruited Mary Elizabeth Bowser, a very intelligent woman with a photographic mind who assumed the persona of dim-witted Ella Bond, to gain access to top secret information in the home of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Mrs. Bowser assumed her persona so well that she was borrowed to work for Jefferson Davis in the Confederate White House. Due to the racial animus of the day, military and other persons frequenting the Confederate White House assumed and perceived Mary, the slave, borrowed from the Van Lew's family, as inherently stupid, unintelligent, incapable of comprehending, illiterate, and trained to be invisible, freely and openly discussed Confederate troop movements and was war strategist in her presence. However, unknown to Jefferson Davis and his staff, she was able to read letters and documents that were left unsecured in the president's private study. She memorized every word, word for word. Mary Elizabeth Bowser gave the information she learned about Confederate war plans to Elizabeth Van Lew, who everyone thought was nuts and was often, and Thomas McNiven as a Richmond banker when she made deliveries to the Confederate White House. And of course, they called her nuts. Mary Elizabeth Bowser's work was invaluable to the Union's war effort. After the American Civil War, the federal government destroyed the records of Southern spy activities to protect them. Consequently, there are missing details in the history about Southern spies for the Union, Mrs. Bowser included. Her descendants rarely discussed her role in the American Civil War, as family members feared retaliation from Confederate sympathizers. Quite possibly, there are descendants of Mary Elizabeth Bowser still living in the city of Richmond today. In 1995, Mary Elizabeth Bowser was honored with the induction into the U.S. Army Military Intelligence Corps Hall of Fame for her brilliant, courageous, and dangerous work during the Civil War. At the induction ceremony, her contributions was described as follows. Mrs. Bowser certainly succeeded in a highly dangerous mission to the great benefit of the Union effort. She was one of the highest placed and most productive espionage agents of the Civil War. Her information greatly enhanced the Union's conduct of the war. Jefferson Davis never discovered the leak in his household staff, although he knew the Union somehow kept discovering Confederate plans because of in-house leaks. Mr. President, I would move that when we adjourn today, that we do so in honor of Elizabeth Bowser, a productive espionage agent of the Civil War. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
On page 10 of your calendar, conferees on the part of the Senate on Senate Bill 1180 as named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, are Senators Chafin, Donovan, and Barker. Today, Monday, February 20th, the Committee on Commerce and Labor will not meet. Commerce and Labor will not meet. The Committee on Local Government will resume 15 minutes after adjournment of the Senate or House, whichever is later, in Senate Room B. The Committee on General Laws and Technology will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room A. The Northern Virginia delegation will not meet. This is a change. Northern Virginia delegation will not meet. Tomorrow, Tuesday, February 21st, the Republican caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 2. The Democratic caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow, and when we do so in memory of Elizabeth Bowser. And I further move that we suspend the rules and direct the clerk to accept memorial and commending resolutions to be introduced until 5 o'clock p.m. today.
Thank you, Senator.
Got Norman.
The Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we do adjourn, would those members who have any commending or memorial resolutions to be submitted by 5 today, please indicate by raising your hand. Ooh, you got a whole bevy. If you would keep your hands up, please, so the clerk's office may take note.
So you're
Mr. President.
The Senator from Franklin County. Who's asking?
Is it possible to return? Go ahead. Time out.
What are you trying to do? Yeah. Do you want me to do the whole adjournment? Senator from Franklin. The Senate will come to order. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I withdraw the motion to adjourn and yield to the senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, that motion will be withdrawn. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Returning to page 4 of our calendar, in unfinished business, the House, with regard to HB 1534, I ask that, having voted on the prevailing side, I now move that we reconsider, that we insist on our substitute, and request a committee in conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1534, by which the Senate rejected, which the substitute was insisted on and a committee of conference requested, should that vote be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those who oppose, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Franklin County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now ask that HB 1534 go by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 1534 will go by for the day. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I renew my motion that the Senate do now adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow. And when we do so in memory of Elizabeth Bowser. And I further move that the Senate suspend the rules and direct the clerk to accept memorial and commending resolutions to be introduced until 5 o'clock p.m. today.
Thank you, Senators. This is a recorded vote, so I appreciate you all staying with us. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow, and that when we do so in memory of Elizabeth Bowser, and furthermore, that the Senate suspend the rules and direct the clerk to accept memorial and commending resolutions to be introduced until 5 p.m. today. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate does now stand adjourned until 11 a.m., and the Senate has suspended the rules and directed the clerk to accept memorial and commending resolutions to be introduced until 5 p.m. today.